This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with James O'Brien.
It's 3 minutes after 10. A very good morning to you. And I have a sense of being down a rabbit hole at the moment. I don't know whether you do. I don't know how across the news you are, but it is currently the most read story on our website and on the BBC website, and therefore, clearly, it is a tale of significance. And yet it is also the tale of a late-night American chat show host, of whom you may not have heard, being suspended from his job for saying things that I can't construe currently as even being controversial. And the reason why I mention a rabbit hole is that all of the chatter about free speech in recent years has come from what I would loosely describe as the right. The right wing were constantly insisting that their free speech was being impeded or suppressed. That ludicrous character Toby Young, who Kemi Badenoch put in the House of Lords, even set up an organisation protecting people whose free speech was being suppressed. And when you looked at the examples, I guess one of the biggest examples would be a woman who pleaded guilty to the crimes for which she was imprisoned and whose appeal against her sentence was such a dismal failure that the notes from the judge, the memos from the judge, come about as close to calling her a barefaced liar as any legal professional can reasonably do. But hey-ho, the Daily Telegraph have turned her into a folk hero. And then, of course, the determination to dead name or deny the reality of transgender people was another great barricade on which the free speech warriors were prepared to pitch their tents. But if you were to, and I find that a very difficult topic of discussion, because every time I try and be thoughtful and uncertain in that space, I end up upsetting everybody, which I don't enjoy doing. If I want to upset people, I only prefer to do it when I want to. But if you were to identify or make a long list of examples of free speech being suppressed, you'd really struggle until relatively recently. Charlie Kirk, upon whom I have had something of a crash course in recent days, set up an organisation or set up a scheme called Professor Watch. Professor Watch, which was literally designed to encourage students to report members of the faculty at their academic institutions for I don't know for what, for unacceptable opinions. And yet they have co-opted the idea, these people have co-opted the idea that they have their free speech being threatened at the moment. I don't know, I apologise for bringing this to your attention almost, but one of the most ludicrous human beings ever to draw breath, a chap called Sebastian Gorka, who you may have had the misfortune of coming across. He's even got a piece on the LBC website today making various claims about the importance of free speech being protected. And yet Donald Trump's administration is trying to shut down free speech in universities, shut down free speech on the streets of the United States of America, and now shut down free speech on television. Stephen Colbert's show's already gone, and now Jimmy Kimmel's show has been suspended. Would you like to know for what? I've got this thing, right? There's part of me that my internal dialogue on a morning like this is largely, why are we talking about this? Is it really such a big deal? And you might be listening to this thinking, why is James going in on an American employment issues on an American broadcaster? And the answer is, and I think I'm a little bit frightened of confronting this face on, is the direction of traffic now is getting close to terrifying. This is what an American talk show host called Jimmy Kimmel has been suspended from his job for.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish.
I saw that clip of Trump. I meant to play it out last week, but I forgot. And it was quite extraordinary. While his movement were in a form of purdah, they were going through incredibly public grief. His movement were doing that, and his key allies and supporters. He was given an opportunity to reflect upon what impact Charlie Kirk's murder had had on him, and he could barely acknowledge it before asking the reporters to look over there at some trucks that were delivering some bricks. And that was a joke there from Jimmy Kimmel. I'm looking at the text messages being exchanged by the suspect in the case and his description of his father as having become very MAGA after the most recent election. And so you could loosely describe with some confidence the family from which the suspect has come as a MAGA family. They're certainly very into guns and that kind of thing. Again, apart from that, we know next to nothing, and yet immediately Donald Trump was trying to claim that the killer was representative of what they call, in quotes, the left, whatever that means. It means to me, generally, people who think that we should have a slightly fairer distribution of wealth. Quite how that lends itself to murderous motivation, God only knows. Except, of course, it doesn't. It doesn't. And what you'll get now is people who've spent a couple of years pretending to care about free speech suddenly switching off that gene and either supporting or staying silent about that television presenter. Here's another one in the United States of America. Here's another television presenter speaking this week.
Billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why did it have to get to this point?
Right. I would say this. We're not voting for the right people. In North Carolina, wake up.
Just listen to that again, and no one's shocked. No one even draws breath. Let's euthanize homeless people, says a presenter on Fox News.
Billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why did it have to get to this point?
Right. I would say this. We're not voting for the right people. In North Carolina, wake up.
Involuntary lethal injection. So there, in real time, on Fox News, a man called Brian Kilmeade, not joking, let me make that absolutely clear, not joking, not even claiming to be joking, in all seriousness, suggests killing homeless people. Involuntary lethal injection. He's subsequently apologised, but he wasn't joking. So I don't know what he's apologised for. Maybe his free speech is under threat. And then Jimmy Kimmel, who we will listen to again, has been suspended from his job for this.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish.
So the way it happened was that a couple of distributors, Nexstar and Sinclair, Nexstar most obviously, essentially said they would no longer broadcast the Jimmy Kimmel show on their stations, and that is where the pressure is applied from. I think they are in the business of, or in the process of doing a deal that would need approval from a Donald Trump appointee. So clearly it has struck them or been made clear to them that the president is unhappy with having his own words played out on the television, having his own answer to a question. This is where my conviction that this is all rather more serious than a television presenter losing their job. A president essentially getting someone fired, not for saying things about the president, essentially, but for showing people footage of the president. That's the point, right? It's not, I mean, you know, you can ask for homeless people to be killed. Okay, keep your job. Not even draw shock from your own colleagues in a Fox News studio. The Fox News is essentially the media wing of the MAGA movement, despite some brief wobbles. And you can show your audience footage of Donald Trump responding in an extraordinarily crass fashion to the murder of somebody widely portrayed as a close friend and ally of him. And that's what gets you into trouble. Showing the audience what Donald Trump is like appears to be what gets you into trouble. So what we have here is regime-adjacent oligarchs clamping down on free speech in the most extraordinary fashion. So I think, and then I worry, and thank you for indulging me today, but then I worry, I worry about media talking about media. I always have. I did the media show on Radio 4 yesterday. Media talking about media is something I love, but I am in the media. It's like one of my favourite subjects. And this feels bigger than that, right? This feels much bigger than that. Do you know what the Reichstag fire is? Sorry, I'm patronising you. Of course you do. And just in case you don't, one Dutch communist set fire to the Reichstag in Germany in the 1930s. And Adolf Hitler claimed that it was part of a much, much bigger movement, and he used this moment to essentially shut down liberties, to close down democracy, to cease freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And when Charlie Kirk was murdered, a few people mentioned that this could be a Reichstag fire moment, including people on Donald Trump's side of the political aisle. And I think I have a reluctance to go there. Is it fear? Is it a form of cowardice? I don't want to confront the possibility of this being as bad as some people say that it is. So I mentioned the Reichstag fire to you last week, but I didn't go all in on it. And I've watched what's happened subsequently. People being encouraged to inform upon their neighbours, people being encouraged to inform upon their colleagues, people being encouraged to inform upon their teachers, their professors, their workmates, their friends, for not being sufficiently reverent or sombre in the context of Charlie Kirk's killing. And now you have Donald Trump apparently proscribing Antifa, which is a thing but not a thing. Like, tell me where they're headquartered, tell me who funds them, tell me who they are, name some members, who is the leader. You can't prescribe as a terrorist organisation something that you can't identify or see. But that is what they're doing. That is what they're doing. And they are using this phrase, the left, to somehow conflate Charlie Kirk's killer with everybody who thinks that Donald Trump is dangerous or dishonest. And he just is. He is dangerous and he is dishonest. That's just true. That's not an opinion. It's counting. Some people like that. That's fine. How do we know how serious this is? How do we know? The idea of an American president not even tiptoeing anymore, but marching towards totalitarianism is so alien, so difficult to get your head around, so completely at odds with everything we know, that I think there's a reluctance even to contemplate it. But this is really, really extraordinary. Not so much the sackings and the suspensions, gross though they are, but the way that they're being undertaken by people who simultaneously claim to be defenders of free speech, to be protectors of free speech. The maddest thing that happened last week was the negative reaction to people being introduced to the words of Charlie Kirk. This still staggers me in the context of both free speech, free expression and proper journalism. Somebody has been murdered in a horrible, horrible way, and we don't know much about him. Let's find out more about him. How dare you find out more about him? How dare you show people what he believed and play clips of him saying the things that he believed? How dare you? How dare you? I'm very, very grateful to Ian Dale. I wouldn't have known that I'd been caught up in that crossfire on Elon Musk's ludicrous platform if Ian hadn't told me on the evening of that day. But I'm a tiny piece of the jigsaw in America. People who have not been sufficiently somber, people who have dared to question the legacy of his words while mostly mourning his murder. Some people behaving very insensitively and crassly, but even that, unfortunately, gets filed under freedom of speech. I had a thought yesterday, and it was this. No defence of free speech has moral value unless you're defending speech you don't like. There's no moral value to defending free speech that you like. The only point at which defending free speech assumes moral agency or has a moral value is when you are recognising the necessity of the free speech of people you don't like, or whose words you don't like, people with opinions you don't like or don't agree with. I've completely lost sight of that recently, but it's so obviously true. I think it's usually attributed to Voltaire or somebody like that I hate what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And nobody in Donald Trump's world subscribes to that belief. They are making it increasingly obvious that they want to criminalise criticism. They want to delete dissent. And now they want to censor and silence comedians or talk show hosts who commit the cardinal sin of telling their audiences things that the president has said and done, or things that a murdered activist has said and done. I want you to have a little think about this. And I want you to tell me I want you to tell me how serious is this? I don't know that you're going to ring me up and tell me to calm down. I kind of hope you are. America sneezes, we catch a cold. Keir Starmer is prostrating himself at the moment before Donald Trump. As we discussed yesterday, I don't think he's got much choice. £150 billion worth of business coming through British tills. It's a big win. I don't know about the relationship between pragmatism and principle at the moment, but I do know this. This kind of thing didn't used to happen in these kind of countries. I want you to tell me how serious you think this is and why. 0345 6060 973. How serious is this moment? The silencing of talk show hosts, the criminalisation of criticism, the deletion of dissent. How serious is this, and how seriously should we take it? Hit the numbers now, you will get through. It's 22 minutes after 10. The number you need is 0345 6060 973.
James O'Brien on LBC.
And there is another bit to this jigsaw that is really, really weird. I wish I could think of a better word. But in MAGA circles, in Donald Trump world, this country, the United Kingdom, our home, is being portrayed as the place where free speech is under threat, or where our personal safety is more jeopardised than ever before. A piece in the Times today by their Washington editor who presumably mixes in quite elevated circles and keeps being asked about how terrible it is in the United Kingdom, where apparently the Muslims have taken over and you can't walk from your front door to your car without getting hit over the head and robbed of all your worldly goods. A complete misrepresentation. I felt a little alarm go off when J.D. Vance started chatting nonsense about free speech in this country, in preference to talking about what's going on in places like Russia and China. But I mean, I don't understand why, but I sense that it's all part of the same project. It's all part of the same programme. And if it is, then your answer to the question, how serious is this, can only be, I think, very serious. How do you persuade a skeptic that they should be worried, really, really worried about the suspension of an American chat show host? That's the challenge in a way. Victoria is in Fitzrovia. Victoria, what would you like to say?
Yeah, I'm an American. I moved here in January. The timing was quite
fortuitous,
quite lucky for me.
Felicitous.
Yes, indeed. And it wasn't because of who was elected, but in spite of who was elected. And I just, I woke up in the middle of the night last night, and I spent a lot of time in Hollywood, and I've lived in Miami. I've lived a lot of places. But when I saw what they did to Jimmy Kimmel, I actually started crying, and it wasn't because of Jimmy Kimmel. It was because of the whole theme of what's happening. I'm going to start crying now because first it was he went after the Smithsonian, which to me is sacred. A museum to me is sacred. He went after the Smithsonian. He went after the Black History Museum, which is part of the Smithsonian, and started taking artwork out of that. I spent time in Florida. They were banning books. They were taking Anne Frank off the shelves. And this to me is just like almost the nail in the coffin because what Jimmy Kimmel said was so minor. Yeah. And days before he had actually tweeted something quite.
He sent love to Charlie Kirk's family and expressed his horror at what had happened.
And don't blame either side. But Donald Trump, he cannot take a joke on him. It's all about his ego. This is all it is. 100%.
I just remind my listeners or tell my listeners what happened at the Smithsonian. What was, because there's more happening now, isn't there? There's an erasure of history that's unfolding, which is again a very, very familiar path on the road to fascism.
So my understanding is that he went after the Smithsonian in general. He actually had one of the Smithsonians remove a piece where they talked about his impeachments. He made them remove that. And then he went after the Black History Museum in Washington, D.C. Anything that really talked about the horrors of slavery that he thought made white people look bad. I mean, I'm paraphrasing.
Yes, of course.
He had removed, or he is seeking to have it removed. And it's and he does this in these little increments where it's the slowly burning of the frog, where we get mad, but then we forget, and we get mad and we forget. And this is just another way of him, and he gloats about it, and I know he's thrilled.
And he's also guilty of all the things he accuses his critics of. So the way he speaks about people, from disabled journalists through to political rivals, through to assassinated politicians, is disgusting. And yet his supporters project onto their opponents the behaviour that Donald Trump is the most obvious exponent of. I love
it's insanity. It's hypocrisy. It's so crazy. It makes me crazy.
I can tell it does. And so you can't separate. And this is, I'm so glad you were the first caller today, because that idea that a talk show host has been suspended, probably for commercial reasons, could be chalked up as, and so what? But you have absolutely nailed how it fits into a much, much bigger pattern, a much bigger problem.
Yeah. And I will tell you one thing that I used to wait on Donald Trump when he went to golf clubs when I was in college.
Did you?
And we made fun of him relentlessly. This was in the early 90s.
So it's all your fault. It's all your fault then.
No, behind his back.
Oh,
but
okay,
he
that's
came
fine.
in with that air. But 20 years ago, I was actually at an Emmy party. And long story, Donald Trump and I knew a man who had been murdered. And I mentioned this man's name, and I said, "Oh, you know this man."
Yeah.
And Donald Trump looked at me and laughed and said, Oh, yeah, that was until he was actually blown up in a car. And he was laughing about it. And I said to him, I said, oh, my goodness, you are such a a-hole. And then I flipped my hair and walked off.
Gosh.
And now I'm so proud of myself for calling.
It's a bit Maya Angelou, isn't it? Is it the notion that people tell you who they are, believe them the first time.
Right.
Victoria, thank you. I hear you, and I hear your pain. I'm late for the news. That's the only reason why I'm moving on. The simple question is, how serious is this? The first answer is deadly serious. How do you persuade a skeptic, though? Might be a little bit easier to do for someone who has a little bit more distance. Victoria, personal knowledge of Donald Trump as a human being long before he was a politician, and of course personal experience of what is going on in the United States. For those of us on the outside, perhaps it's a little bit easier to point to the lessons of history. I don't know. Maybe it's harder. Thomas Watts has your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It's 10:32. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Are you scared yet about what's happening in the States? Remember, if the United States sneezes, historically, we usually catch a cold, and we have our own little pound shop Trump, still currently riding high in the opinion polls in this country. A great defender of free speech, Nigel Farage frequently tells us. Silent so far on all of these examples of free speech being hideously curtailed. Would you believe me if I told you that the statistical evidence of far-right extremists in the United States committing far more ideologically motivated homicides than far-left or even radical Islamist extremists exists? Would you believe me that the Department of Justice is in possession of this statistical proof? Probably you would. Would you believe me if I told you that in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's killing, they have deleted that from their own website? Are you scared yet? I'll say that again. The Department of Justice in the last few days has deleted one of its own studies from its own website showing that, and I quote, far-right extremists have committed far more ideologically motivated homicides than far-left or radical Islamist extremists. Which brings us back to Jimmy Kimmel, who has pointed out that Donald Trump has used the killing of Charlie Kirk to claim that the, quotes, left, end quotes, is responsible, with no evidence whatsoever for that claim. Even if it were to turn out to be true, he had no evidence whatsoever for that claim when he made it, and when that claim was echoed by his acolytes and cronies, his cheerleaders and client journalists. So the idea that the, quotes, left, end quotes, has a monopoly on political violence is not only a blatant lie disproved by recently deleted data from his own Department of Justice, it is also inarguably and incontrovertibly evidence of him trying to score political points from the killing of Charlie Kirk. That's not an opinion, that's counting. And yet Jimmy Kimmel loses his job for saying this.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish.
And this guy from Fox News, a pro-Trump network, has still got a job.
Billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why did it have to get to this point?
Right. I would say this. We're not voting for the right people. In North Carolina, wake up.
And no one in that studio, I mean, I've been in studios with some pretty unpleasant people, or at least people possessed of some pretty unpleasant views. And no one gasped. Let's kill homeless people. Yeah, okay, anyway, here's the weather. That Department of Justice story, the Smithsonian story, the banning of books, all of it is happening. And I think we might be a little bit incapable of clocking the significance of the moment without a bit more help. Let's find out. Charles is in Dover. Charles, what would you like to say?
I think that we need to realise that we are very, 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 very close to getting to some very, very unpleasant times. We're in that kind of economic downturn. A lot of people have frustrations, a lot of stress, and this has an effect on how people behave, and it pulls people to the polls. And when we get this very inflammatory rhetoric and very divisive rhetoric will lead to escalations of violence. They killed Charlie Kirk, so we're going to kill one of theirs.
But they don't know who killed
one
Charlie.
of ours. We're going to have to go and
they
kill
don't know what the
again.
motivation was. Did you hear anything particularly divisive in Jimmy Kimmel playing out footage of Donald Trump talking?
Not Jimmy Kimmel, but in that reaction to the murder of Charlie Kirk, there's certainly been a lot of divisive language. And when even moderate criticism, like what happened with Jimmy Kimmel, is shut down, is suppressed, then all you're leaving on your detractor side is the more inflammatory language. So you're actually then helping to radicalise your opponents. Well,
and the claim I keep hearing is that some absolute randoms and non-entities on the internet have said some disgusting things about Charlie Kirk's killing. No crimes committed, expression freedom of expression being exercised, things that I would consider to be beyond the pale but not beyond the law. And I can't name any of them at the moment. I'm not sure anybody can, but I sat with Boris Johnson's former director of communications in a BBC studio yesterday, and he was talking about how the left have been celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, and you're sort of like, who? Who do you mean? And the answer will be some random people I've never heard of on the internet that have been brought to my attention by the kind of people who are clamouring for Jimmy Kimmel to be taken off air. So I even struggle with the idea that there's two sides in this discussion. There are people who are shutting down free speech like it's going out of fashion, and then there are people who are not and never did. And yet they're the ones being portrayed by Donald Trump's fans as the enemies of free speech. J.D. Vance says we've got free speech problems in this country when his administration is going after journalists, going after comedians, going after college professors, going after everybody. It's bonkers, right? It's just bonkers.
One of the main problems we have as a society is we don't often really understand what free speech means, particularly when it comes to these sorts of discussions. So, there are limits on free speech. Free speech isn't just a license to say anything and everything that you like.
You can't, for example, say, go and set fire to that building full of human beings over there when there are rampaging mobs on the streets of our country. That is an obvious crime, although it gets you invited onto the stage at Nigel Farage's party conference and treated like a hero. I mean, that is bonkers, right?
That is. And I think another thing in it as well is things like when you look at... it's not just that. You couldn't say, oh, it was freedom of speech for me to tell you that I've got a bridge to sell you that doesn't exist. Yeah. Fraud doesn't, you can't use free speech to
that vaccine,
get out of fraud.
That vaccine designed to save your life is secretly designed to kill you. The limits on freedom of speech are clear. I mean, the classic example is always shouting fire in a crowded theatre, causing a stampede that kills people, and there never was a fire. Defensively, I honestly believe that there was, and that's why courts exist. Seriousness of it is growing. I sometimes come on. I know that you tune in often, not you, Charles, everybody, expecting a pungent opinion. Do you know why I use that phrase? Have I ever told you why I use that phrase? I was thinking about it the other day. I think I changed as a radio presenter when I met Terry Wogan backstage at an ITV thing. And I don't think he had the first idea who I was, but he pretended to. And he knew that I worked at LBC because they'd said that in the introduction. And he said, you're the fellow with the pungent opinions. He was Welsh, You're the fellow with the pungent opinions. And I thought, I don't think I am. And I really don't want to be. Perhaps I should start. And I think subconsciously I started being a bit more contemplative and a bit more thoughtful and entertaining the possibility that some of my very pungent opinions may be wrong or unfair or unkind. And guess what? Spoiler alert, they were. And these days, I come on air sometimes pretty fearful or pretty certain of something that I find frightening. And I kind of want you to persuade me that I'm wrong and that it's not frightening. And I mean, what if it is? What if it is? And I'm putting all my effort into persuading myself and possibly you that it isn't. The longer this conversation goes on, the more worried I become. This is really bad, right? Convince me that it isn't. Obi is in Bromley. Obi, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. First-time caller, long-time listener.
Welcome.
And,
welcome.
Thank you. Just a quick one, actually, because you were talking about you've changed. I can remember when I first heard about you. It was actually doing the loops. It was. I don't think the time was listening to about 1 o'clock in the morning. LBC was doing loops, and there was a footballer that was on the loop, a well-known footballer at the time, and someone had been giving him a good telling off about him.
That was a very pungent. That was a very pungent opinion, Obi, wasn't it? Do you know that's the only Sony award I ever won was for that encounter. But there we go. Anyway, that's not why you rang in. What did you want to say?
No, it's not. And I think I'm not glad that you picked this one up, but it just shows how quick you are in terms of the current affairs, because this only broke, as you know, in the morning, early doors our time, and it is very important. I can't dissuade you from your gut instinct to say no, because I couldn't sleep when I found out.
Really?
I was sort of a bit of an insomniac.
Sure.
It is important, and I think the reason it's important, and I'm just echoing what you're saying, but just a little bit more context. Brendan Carr is the head of the FSC in America. So he effectively provides all of the licensing for the old model broadcasters.
Yes. The FCC, the chair of the FCC.
Right. Exactly. Now, he went on to a right-wing podcast. I hate using the term right-wing. They're not extreme. I've never heard of them, but I believe they were on the right. And he went on to that podcast and he said, out loud, that the comments that Jimmy Carr had made were and I'm quoting here.
Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Carr takes a lot of stick, right? Some of it deserved, but he's not on the hook for this one. Poor lad. Jimmy Kimmel, go on.
Sorry, Jimmy Kimmel, because Brendan Carr, Jimmy Kimmel. The comments that Jimmy Kimmel had made were some of the most sickest conduct possible.
I mean, that's just insane, right?
Yeah. Because what you played, that's it. And
hang on, I'm just gonna cross live, if I may, to Chequers, where President Trump is due to arrive, and Aggie Chambray is part of the welcoming committee.
I am indeed, James. I can hear the helicopter just landing, Donald Trump arriving from Windsor Castle. I can see the grass moving and the welcome committee, not me, actually ready to go. I've seen people all morning practicing marching, practicing bagpipes, and Trump will arrive, step out of the helicopter in the next few seconds. He'll be greeted by Sir Keir Starmer. I can just see him about to land. You can probably hear that helicopter overhead at Chequers, the Prime Minister's country residence. There we go, landing at Chequers, ready to be greeted by the Prime Minister before a day of activities, the second full day of the state visit in this unprecedented state visit. So going to be greeted by Keir Starmer, going to be greeted by a guard of honour, a band of bagpipes. As I say, they've been practising that this morning. Donald Trump will then go on a tour of Winston Churchill archives. They'll then sit down for a bilateral meeting and a reception with business leaders before they have lunch. And then after lunch, they have that all-important press conference, which I think we are all looking forward to, James. I'm sure numerous topics will come up, like probably migration, freedom of speech, Nigel Farage,
Jimmy
not
Kimmel.
least Peter Mandelson's sacking Jimmy Kimmel. Indeed, James. I'm sure you can hear that helicopter.
There's a lot of people. A lot of people are very keen for me to provide commentary on the helicopter. I don't know why. I don't know where they got the idea that that's something I might be good at. But the press conference will be live.
I think it must have been yesterday, James.
No, surely not. The press conference will be live. I imagine we'll take it. We'll take it in its entirety on LBC, and it will be the only real opportunity that people in this country have to put questions to the President of the United States, an opportunity currently denied to many American journalists, but presumably there'll be some American journalists in the room as well.
I think there will be American journalists in the room as well. There's the US press pack. I'm just bending down, James, to try and work out what's going on because there are lots of trees in front of me. But it looks like at this very moment, there is a helicopter touching down that says United States of America on it. And I think that will be the one that Donald Trump is going to be getting out of. But as you say, yeah, the press conference later today will be that moment for press. People from the press, from the UK and the US to be able to ask questions. You'll remember, of course, when there was a press conference in the United States, our political editor, Natasha Clark, got to ask a question. So hopefully, I'm sure she will do everything she physically can to ask a question again today. That door has just opened on the helicopter and a soldier has walked out. So I think between the trees, we may be the President of the United States walking down those stairs. Is that him walking down the stairs? I'm a little way away.
No way. That's far too sprightly.
He'll be.
These are Secret Service. These are Secret Service operatives. Good Lord, there's millions of them. Must be like the TARDIS, that helicopter. And there could be. It's a tricky job. This. There could be another. I suspect that he's not even in that helicopter, Aggie. And that the one that he is in is going to land after the Secret Service operatives have been deployed. I shall assume the commentating mantle now, with your permission, Aggie Chambray. We may return live to Chequers when the opportunity allows, but I suspect that the President is on the other helicopter, as it is known in the trade. That is a technical term, the other helicopter. And the reason, of course, why they do this, as we discussed yesterday, is akin to the 3 egg cups trick, beloved of fairground barkers, where you have to guess under which egg cup the pea is concealed, and that is for security reasons. Rather obvious that you don't know for certain which of the multiple helicopters in the sky the President of the United States is going to be in. So here comes the second one. Coming into land now at Chequers, the Prime Minister's grace and favour country residence. I think there were 3 yesterday. I think there's only 2 today, and the odds are that he's on this one, that he will be hopping out of this one, having lunch with Keir Starmer, and then during Sheila's show, I think it was pointed out to the President that he couldn't mess with Mystery Hour. They couldn't have the press conference during Mystery Hour on Thursdays from 12 on the James O'Brien programme on LBC, and therefore it was decided that the press conference would take place later this afternoon, and affords, as we've discussed, an opportunity to the Fourth Estate, to journalists in this country, to put potentially problematic questions to Donald Trump. I think that's enough helicopter commentary. I'll tell you when he gets out of it. But the other element of this that it's not being overlooked at all, but I haven't mentioned it to you yet, is that Keir Starmer will be slightly worried about this, because they have successfully pandered to Donald Trump's vanity. I don't think anyone can dispute that analysis. They have absolutely laid it on. It doesn't get any thicker than this. There is no level of pageantry and tradition that exists beyond what has been laid on for Donald Trump during his second state visit. And the warm glow that they have sought to foster in what passes for Donald Trump's heart is something that Keir Starmer's political, not quite survival, but his political fortunes in many ways hinge on. If he can keep the president sweet, everything from his point of view, everything gets better. I'm going to take a short break now, and as the motorcade makes its way towards the helicopter, the President Trump he's kind of arrived at Chequers, but he hasn't got off the helicopter yet.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 10:54 and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Let's go back to Obi. The President has arrived at Chequers for lunch and meetings with Keir Starmer. What do you think happened when... I know he wouldn't have shut the door himself. He's got people to do that sort of thing for him. But when let's, for the sake of our conversation, our time together, let's imagine Charles shut the door and Donald and Melania are making their way up the drive. What do you think happened? Have you ever had that, when you couldn't wait to get rid of guests? You're just shutting and you're just sort of going, and he goes to Camilla, what would they have said to each other in that moment? I'll leave you to speculate on that. Just take me back to Brendan Carr. I'm trying to find the clip that you're referring to. Did he essentially painted a target on Jimmy Kimmel's back, did he, Obi?
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, so he was speaking to us, as I say, not a well-known, certainly I've never heard of him, but that says probably less about me, sort of swimming in that sort of pool.
I definitely won't have heard of it.
Somebody called Johnson, and he went onto their podcast, and he just unleashed the hounds and effectively the vitriol way over the top for the comments that you've just played and for what I've seen on a number of news organisations. And he essentially went on to say that, there are a number of levers that he has, I'm paraphrasing now, but there are a number of levers that he has at his control as the head of the FCC. And if, Kimmel is not removed, he will have to look at them. And he literally said, ABC will have to decide if they want to play, the easy way or the hard way.
Nice TV empire you got there. Be a shame if something happened to it.
Yeah. No, and what's important is the deal with Netscar, because it gets into the weeds a little bit, but it is important. Netscar and the other one, I think it is Sinclair, they together hold about 80% of the sort of local broadcasting TV.
Yeah.
So the move that Netstar did was they said, we're not going to show Jimmy Kimmel in any of our affiliates, right? There's also a deal because they want to buy another company called can't remember.
That's all right, but it will need FCC approval. That's the point, isn't it? The deal would need FCC approval. We're talking about local media conglomerates seeking mergers that would require administration approval. So if the administration makes it clear that they are unhappy with somebody like Jimmy Kimmel, then the message, whether it's made explicit or not, is obviously, well, you need my approval for this deal, and at the moment, I don't like you very much. Donald Trump's made no secret of that. It was last night's episode that he was preparing to tape in Hollywood when the announcement was made. He was told personally, he was at work when the announcement was made. And there are, of course, several ABCs in the world. This is the American ABC. The Australian ABC was in the news yesterday when Donald Trump had that extraordinarily petulant and childish outburst at an Australian journalist who simply asked about his business dealings, and Donald Trump said, I'm going to tell my mummy about you. Donald Trump said he was going to complain to the Australian Prime Minister about the Australian journalist. I don't know how much you should read into this, but the ABC were informed earlier that they will not be allowed to attend Donald Trump's press conference despite having secured accreditation to attend Chequers. Now, we know from Natasha that numbers can be tight and accreditation is a movable feast, and whether you get in the room or not, sometimes you don't get a question guaranteed, but it's certainly worthy of reporting and questioning. And I am reporting and questioning why the Australian broadcaster has been informed by Downing Street that its accreditation to attend the press conference later today had been withdrawn for, quotes, logistical reasons, end quotes. Could be a coincidence. Might not be. Lisa is in Southampton. Lisa, what would you like to say?
Well, it's interesting. I've just read the same article from Heather Cox Richardson, all about Carr.
Oh, yeah.
And but Carr is the one.
Brendan Carr, not Jimmy Carr. Lord above,
Brendan Carr.
Brendan Carr,
and the FCC and the Nexstar. And it all comes down to money.
Yeah.
These mergers come down to money. But I taught McCarthyism. I taught Cold War, pre-Cold War.
Wow.
This smacks of, and I was born in the 1950s in America. This smacks of the Cold War. This is. He's attacking Hollywood as well. He hates Hollywood. He hates California. He hates us because we're a successful state. He really hates our governor. And it's just one more thing. But one thing I have to say, Brock Purdy, who is my quarterback for the 49ers, a very devout Christian. He actually is getting flack because he wrote an article. He said yesterday, if you want people to speak about you kindly after you pass, then you have to have kind words while you're alive. And he got so much flack. He was talking about Charlie Kirk. And if you read the article, and Brock Purdy is a devout Christian. He is he literally has never said an unkind word. And to me, he wasn't saying...
That's Jesus' message right there that he's spreading.
Well, I taught RE as well. I taught religious education. I asked kids, what would Jesus do? What would he say? And none of the words coming out of I am sorry, but Charlie Kirk's mouth, many of them, very unkind words. And Brock Purdy says you want people to think of you well in the next life, you actually have to be kind to people now.
Or you have a political movement behind you that is going to silence anybody who literally points out what you said when you were alive.
Well,
and that remains extraordinary to me. I'm just looking up Brock Purdy now, and I wasn't aware of this.
San Francisco 49ers just came out today, and, everybody loves Brock Purdy because he's just a kind person.
Right.
He's, never said anything bad about, and to me, he wasn't saying anything bad. He was just pointing out a fact that you need to be kind in this world.
I mean, I'm not a student of McCarthyism, Lisa, forgive me. I know my way around the Crucible, which was, of course, the allegory that Arthur Miller wrote to highlight what was going on. But this was, I mean, all of these phrases that I've used today, the silencing of dissent, the criminalisation of criticism. People's careers were ended because of bogus associations with communism. It was the era of Reds under the bed, and do you understand what I mean when I talk about a reluctance to believe that it could be happening again?
But I'm actually very frightened because I've heard friends of mine here in the UK, because I was up on Saturday for a football match, but I saw people coming back from the Tommy Robinson March.
Right.
And I have had close friends of mine say, I won't go to London, it's dangerous. I won't go up there. And my kids live in London. I go to London a lot. I have never, and I also, they said it's not our country, it's not diverse, it's too diverse. And I love the diversity in London. I love the cultures. It's like walking in the United Nations. So I don't like hearing those things from my friends.
And that's in this country, is it?
It's in this country.
Because I know that I'm reading that Americans are being persuaded of this. And in fact, Elon Musk addressed that in his ludicrous speech, didn't he? He said, I speak to people in villages and towns and they say things are okay here, things are great, but they should go to London and see how awful it is. But of course, you can't go to London because if you did, you'd see that it's not awful at all. So this narrative only really survives if people can be frightened out of going to London. And then you get some idiot from Farage's outfit saying that every time she gets on a train, all the other passengers are wearing balaclavas. Crime happens everywhere. I'd rather take my chances in London than in most major American cities, not least because of gun law. But I don't know, sometimes a lie is halfway around the world before the truth has got its trousers on. Thank you, Lisa. I think McCarthyism probably is the lens through which to examine some of this. It's 2 minutes after 11.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 6 minutes after 11, and if you think it's an exaggeration to suggest that when America sneezes we all catch a cold, I can tell you that The Spectator magazine this morning, currently edited by Michael Gove, has run a very friendly piece about the alleged sex trafficker and rampant misogynist Andrew Tate, in which the author writes, they've been accused of all sorts, making him sound like a kind of apple-scrumping Dennis the Menace tribute act. What they stand accused of course, is violence, rape, sex trafficking, controlling prostitution for gain, organised crime, money laundering and witness tampering. But having listed those, the author chooses to add, to the BBC and bourgeois parents everywhere, they are infamous. Apparently only the BBC and bourgeois parents everywhere now who don't really like rape, actual bodily harm, sex trafficking, controlling prostitution for gain, organised crime, money laundering, or indeed witness tampering. I suppose it's woke, is it, now, to object to those sort of things? But the cover piece, and I've had to double-check this because I thought it might be a parody. I find myself thinking that more and more at the moment. I'm a target like Charlie Kirk. Andrew Tate is the headline and byline that appears on the front of Michael Gove's Spectator magazine. Also comparing Britain to the Weimar Republic, which was the precursor to Nazism in Germany, but possibly not having seen that rather splendid sketch that Mitchell and Webb did about the dawning realisation that they're actually the baddies. In fact, I suspect that front cover is the Mitchell and Webb sketch in journalistic form, but nobody at The Spectator appears to have the wit to realise. 8 minutes after 11. In fact, is there a better example of what has been inflicted on this country by a relatively small group of people than Michael Gove? George Osborne went off to edit the Evening Standard and run the British Museum. Absolutely no consequences for what he inflicted on the country. But to be fair to the fella, at least he knew Brexit was going to be a stupid idea and didn't actually want the referendum to go ahead in the first place. But Gove was there front and centre, absolutely cheering every dot and comma of this mad lurch towards increasing irrelevance and economic difficulties. Part of the government that saw immigration explode, and also, no doubt, part of the backlash against immigration that they helped to introduce, in large part because they had to cover up the huge holes left in our economy by the departure of all of the people who were made to feel unwelcome and persona non grata as a consequence of the Brexit that he loved and championed. But off he trots to the Spectator, which I think these days, is it owned by the same bloke that owns GBB's? These days, I think it is. So, you know, well done, everybody. That's a really scary front page, actually. And to be treating Andrew Tate like that is extraordinary. But that's what I've discovered this week. This new right wing exists on both sides of the Atlantic, makes heroes of people who aren't very heroic. Vanessa is in Glasgow to steer us back to the question of how bad this is. How bad is this moment? How serious? And we're using the suspension, or actually, I'll just before I speak to Vanessa, here is the head of the FCC, Brendan Carr, making the comments that Obi referred to a moment ago. So this is the guy who gets to decide whether or not massive media companies currently syndicating or broadcasting, whatever the correct technical term is, Jimmy Kimmel's show. And this is, in fact, before we hear that, should we hear what Jimmy Kimmel did again? I think we'll hear what Jimmy Kimmel did again. This is the offence, all right, for which he has been suspended. And so listen to this first, if you're just joining us. This is a career-ending intervention from one of America's most popular talk show hosts.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger-pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish.
And Brendan Carr is the chair of the Federal Communications Commission, in whose gift approval for a Trump appointee, he got the job this year, in whose gift approval of big broadcasting deals like the ones that we've been discussing previously lies. He gets to say whether it's a good thing or a bad thing.
There's actions that we can take on licensed broadcasters, and frankly, I think that it's really sort of past time that a lot of these licensed broadcasters themselves push back on Comcast and Disney and say, listen, we are going to preempt. We are not going to run Kimmel anymore until you straighten this out, because we licensed broadcaster, are running the possibility of fines or license revocation from the FCC if we continue to run content that ends up being a pattern of news distortion. So I think, again, Disney needs to see some change here. But the individual licensed stations that are taking their content, it's time for them to step up and say, this, garbage, to the extent that that's what comes down the pipe in the future, isn't something that we think serves the needs of our local communities. But this sort of status quo is obviously not acceptable where we are.
Must be a different Brendan Carr who took to Twitter a couple of years ago to say free speech is the counterweight. It is the check on government control. That is why censorship is the authoritarian's dream. And that tweet has been dug up by the Democratic Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker. So a guy, and this is what I've been trying to convey to you, using the word projection or whatever the correct word might be. They are accusing their political enemies of doing things that their political enemies are not doing, and then doing them themselves on an extraordinary scale. So this character can write with a straight face, free speech is the counterweight, it is the check on government control, that is why censorship is the authoritarian's dream. And then he can give an interview to a sympathetic podcaster in which he essentially calls for censorship. Well, not even essentially, he literally calls for censorship. And the relationship, I think even Mussolini acknowledged the relationship between fascism, which he invented, and business. Fascism is a business model as much as a political one. And rarely will you see better evidence of that than in moments like this, which I suppose is me answering my own question of how serious is this moment. Vanessa is in Glasgow. Vanessa, what do you think?
I think this is a very, very significant moment. I just want to put some things into context that maybe some people don't know. First of all, the Jimmy Kimmel clip that you played was on Monday night.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until 2 days later that Brendan Carr went onto this show and did not just suggest censorship, he threatened the networks.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing. If you don't take him off the air, I'm going to come down hard on you.
Yeah.
I'm going to attack you. That was a direct threat. And because of that threat, Jimmy Kimmel was cancelled. Now, I'm not a fan of Jimmy Kimmel. I've never really watched him, but this is an attack on the Fourth Estate itself, free media. The reason why people are bringing it back to Trump, not just because of the content of what Jimmy was talking about, but it was because of Stephen Colbert. When Stephen Colbert was sacked and was given his order of 18 months or whatever his show has left, Trump went on to social media and said, great, now Colbert is gone, next up is Kimmel, and then Fallon, and then Myers. So you can actually see Trump saying, I am going to do this. I have done it with Colbert. Colbert is gone. Now Kimmel is gone. Now I'm going to attack someone else. And the reason why this is important, James, is because this is a direct attack on anyone and everyone that is willing to hold President Trump accountable in any way, shape or form.
And what's incredible about it to me is the fact that they're not even really expressing opinions. They're either stating facts or playing footage of the characters in the piece. They're not, I mean, Kimmel in particular hasn't really done anything except point out how crass it was of Trump to respond to a question about a murdered ally by talking about building work.
Well, this is alongside the fact that Trump is going after Lisa Cook, who is a Federal Reserve governor, for not decreasing the interest rates. This is on top of going after the New York Post and the Wall Street Journal and bringing them to court for a settlement of $15 billion, I think he's after, for the New York Post.
He's not even after that. He's just trying to frighten people. I don't think there's any prospect of a legal victory any more than his last libel case.
But more seriously, this is on top of Pam Bondi. And if anyone has not seen the interview with Pam Bondi, I advise you to watch it. This is Pam Bondi saying, she was asked a question about people, quote unquote, celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, which should not happen across the board. Obviously. It is vile. It is vile. She said, we will target you. We will come after you. We will get you sacked. We will get you jailed. We are coming for you. She said the quiet part out loud. Yeah. That's what she did. And it doesn't matter if you are Jimmy Kimmel or a lone person on the street just saying, well, you know, it happens. They're coming for you. And what they're saying is, you can think these things, and that's fine. You're not allowed to say them in public,
no,
or we will target you.
You're not allowed to say anything we don't like. It's not even particularly inflammatory or particularly controversial. If it upsets the Supreme Leader, we will close you down. We will shut you up. We will take away your livelihood. We will get you fired. We will turn our mob. We will unleash our mob upon you. Extraordinary. I had to dump a little bit of that with Vanessa because she used a naughty word. It would be a little bit ironic if we were engaging in censorship on this programme, but Ofcom is very strict about rude words, possibly a little bit too strict, but I always, where Ofcom is concerned, err on the side of caution. 17 minutes after 11 is the time. I've got quite a lot to come on the show. I thought it was important to get Simon Marks on today. I won't be deriving much pleasure from this, but he's being proved right about almost everything. Even I wondered a few weeks ago whether or not I kind of wanted him to not be right, if you see what I mean. Even I was capable of going, oh dear, that's a bit strong. But he's hit every single mark so far. hence the name. And I've also got Leah Varadkar, the former Irish Taoiseach, coming into the studio in about 10 minutes' time. He's also sticking around to do full disclosure today as well, so loads to get through. And then, of course, at 12 o'clock, thanks to the President being made aware of Mystery Hour and deciding, therefore, to hold the press conference at Chequers a little later today during Sheila's show, we will be able to press ahead with Mystery Hour. The time now is 11:18.
James O'Brien on LBC.
20 minutes after 11, Donald Trump is at Chequers, having quit Windsor Castle, no doubt to the enormous relief of King Charles and Queen Camilla. He is now at Chequers with Keir Starmer and his wife, and will be lunching there before a press conference later today. It puts a slightly different complexion on things, doesn't it? The conversation we had yesterday about whether or not Keir Starmer has any choice but to try to butter up and keep the president as sweet as possible. In my opinion, he absolutely does not, and he has done so far a brilliant job, but with no guarantees. You know, the warm glow that Donald Trump will be feeling after being on the receiving end of such extraordinary tribute. And that's what it is. It's tribute, like the Romans, you know, like Ming the Merciless, bringing tribute. It may dissipate while he's crossing the Atlantic. There'll be worries in Downing Street about pesky old journalists asking difficult questions, but happily we live in a country where those freedoms are unlikely ever to be curtailed. I am keen to know why the Australian Broadcasting Corporation have been told that there's no room for them at the Inn today, shortly after one of their members upset the president. Well, can we listen to that as well? Can we have another little listen to him throwing his rattle out of the pram when he was asked a perfectly civil and normal question by that Australian journalist? Can we get that out of the box as well before home time today? But on it goes. So that notion of what is Keir Starmer sacrificing on the altar of keeping Trump sweet? And that question changes in tone and impact the more we understand about what Trump is doing in the United States. And that is now looking, to quote some of my callers, increasingly McCarthyite, increasingly oppressive, increasingly unfree, and increasingly scary. No calls yet challenging the conclusion that this is a moment for serious, serious concern. Siobhan's in Gravesend. Siobhan, what would you like to say?
Hi there. Yeah, I rang up actually initially to speak about Brendan Carr, not Jimmy Carr or Alan Carr.
Or racing car.
But he just to go a little bit deeper into him before I move on. He's an appointee of Trump in 2017 and then was elevated earlier this year, and he's actually a contributor to Project 2025.
Gosh.
So their communications element of that vile document, he was a major contributor to that. So
I didn't know that.
All part of the plan. And we all know that Trump's biggest fanboy is Farage. And I'm terrified, actually. You know, we have these freedoms at the moment, but...
He wrote the chapter, you're absolutely right. He wrote the FCC chapter for Project 25.
Yeah, and if you look at, 1930s Germany, censorship and propaganda, this is how they...
It's the truth that they hate, isn't it? I think that some of these things are so big, they're hard to swallow, Siobhan. I don't know if you suffer from that. I do, because I'm sort of thinking, no, come off it. This isn't 1930s Germany, or come off it. This isn't Joseph Stalin. So let's just look at the facts, and the facts are they hate the truth now. They hate the truth so much that they have a hissy fit when you play out a clip. Well, Trump has a hissy fit. Trump's people have a hissy fit when a talk show host plays a clip of Trump. Here is your hero. Here he is. Look at his clay feet. Here is your hero. And the same with Charlie Kirk. Here is your hero saying things. And then they go mad. And that, I don't know psychologically that I'll ever be able to understand that. How can you go mad about being shown the things that your champion of free speech has said? And the only way they avoid that feeling that they get is by banning people from doing it.
And there was a journalist from the Washington Post who literally just quoted Kirk word for word. Yeah. And, her job was gone.
Karen Attire, we spoke to Simon about her on Monday. I think she went she expressed some opinions as well, but that's the point, isn't it? You need to marry these two moments together. So it's not the only way you can avoid being shown, or having other people shown the words and the conduct of your heroes in a way that will be embarrassing, because the truth is embarrassing, so you ban the truth. And that is what they are currently embarked upon. They are banning the truth.
Or they tell you that you're distorting the truth. You haven't taken the full clip or the full text into context. And I mean, and I did know about Charlie Kirk, because I do follow closely some of these people.
Sure.
Candace Owens is next, because I think Brigitte Macron has actually filed a suit.
So she's the co-founder she's the co-founder of Kirk's organisation, is she?
Well, she was very much aligned with...
And she's the one that Brigitte Macron is suing because she keeps saying that she's a man.
Yes, and you know, we're talking about free speech and, you know, the boundaries within there. There's also defamation and libel. You know, I saw earlier someone said, well, you know, what about the censorship of Alex Jones? Well, that was defamation. That actually did cause some terrible harm and threats to
that's the rule of law. And freedom of speech is not freedom from consequences. Accusing grieving parents of being liars and actors is not the same as saying, oh, here's a clip of your hero being an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, I think this is terrible. And do you know what? I think if Farage gets in, we're heading in the same direction. Well, do you know what, James? My mum's Spanish. She lives in Spain. I've applied for my Spanish passport because if Reform get in, I'm off.
There'll be similar attempts. I mean, you would hope, wouldn't you, that our systems, our media, our legal system, our checks and balances would be a lot more robust than the American ones. But I guess if you'd said to me 5 years ago that the United States would be going down the path that it's going down, then I would not have believed you. In fact, so many roads for me, and I suspect for you as well, Siobhan, lead back to the January the 6th attempted coup that was essentially called for by Donald Trump. And it's as if it never happened. And, of course, that means two things. It means that his opponents have failed utterly to respond to it effectively, and his supporters are quite comfortable with the idea of coups and democracy being dismantled and elected governments being overthrown, as long as it's their lot doing the overthrowing and their lot doing the coups. And that brings us back to the free speech point. I didn't know that Alex Jones was being cited as the yin to Jimmy Kimmel's yang. Somebody telling lies about grieving parents and dead children is somehow the counterbalance to Jimmy Kimmel playing clips of Donald Trump being Donald Trump. It's extraordinary, and you get it as well with the left. You talk about the left. These people talk about the left doing this and the left doing that. Yeah, it's some idiot posting something horrible in the aftermath of a murder. It's not emblematic of any political movement. Everybody who believes in a distribution of wealth or is opposed to fascism is not dancing on poor Charlie Kirk's grave or adding to his widow's miseries by being insensitive. It is a freedom to be insensitive, a freedom to be offensive. It's not one that I indulge, and not one I'd ever dream of indulging in the context of an assassination, but it is people on the right who have spent the last 10 years insisting on the freedom to be offensive. It is people on the right who have used the phrase hurty words to try and minimise the impact of being offensive. It is people on the right who have insisted that you shouldn't have any limits whatsoever on free speech, up to and including incitement and lies. It's people on the right who've invited Lucy Connolly onto the stage at their party conferences, despite the fact that she didn't just cross the line, she sped at 100 miles an hour through the line between commentary and incitement, and then pleaded guilty to it. It's people on the right who have done all of the things that they're accusing people on the, quotes, left of doing. And you can't name anybody on the left who's done any of the things that are being cited as proof of how awful they are. Except whatever the left-wing equivalent of Billy Buncher numbers with a bulldog avatar is. Militant, probably, for Viz readers. It's absolutely bonkers. But it is getting faster, and, as Chris reminds me, we're not even a year into it yet. Extraordinary. Thank you, Siobhan. I obviously hope you're wrong, and I will continue to argue that you are, but you're right to be fearful of what might be next for us, given the proximity of some politicians in this country to Donald Trump's increasingly fascistic regime. Thomas Watts is here now with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 33 minutes after 11. I am on standby for a studio guest, Leo Varadkar, the former Taoiseach, due to join me imminently, but obviously not yet. So he will come into the studio the minute he appears. In the meantime, it gives me a moment to express some concern for our friends on the comment pages at the Daily Telegraph, because I felt in recent weeks or in recent days that they had almost received a memo telling them to stop doing the unhinged headlines. Whether or not I would be the reason for that memo, goodness only knows. Although there is a level of obsession that is both flattering and slightly disturbing. On the part of some of their writers, not on the news pages, there's proper journalists there, but they have not been very unhinged lately. They've even got Suella Braverman back on page 14 today, so I think normal service is in the process of being resumed. And I've got two unhinged headlines for you today, one in the Telegraph and one in the Mail. Let's start with the one in the Telegraph.
Unhinged headline.
This is Alistair Heath, inevitably. Starmer's staggering incompetence is an embarrassment to Britain, he writes. It must be a different Alistair Heath who wrote last year, let me get this absolutely right, Starmer's staggering incompetence makes him the worst PM in 50 years. They're even recycling their own unhinged headlines now. And Alistair Heath, of course, is the man that thought Liz Truss was the finest political genius of his age and that her fiscal event was a moment of true political magic. So if you want to talk about incompetence, Alistair Heath, I suggest that you start a little closer to home.
Unhinged headline.
Which is quite an introduction for the former Taoiseach Leo Varadkar, who has snuck into the studio while I was embarking on today's unhinged headline. Leo, welcome.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
It's lovely to see you.
Nice to be in studio with you.
I suppose we have to start, before we look at your life and career in your new book, Speaking My Mind, we have to sort of acknowledge the visit of Donald Trump to these islands at the moment. Would you have adopted quite as a conciliatory approach as Sir Keir Starmer has chosen to do?
Probably, to be honest. He is the president of America. He was elected by the American people, most powerful military and economy in the world, and he has an affinity towards the UK, largely through his mother's Scottish ancestry, his like of the royal family and pomp and all that. So I think on balance, it's better to try to befriend him and see if you can influence him. There might come a point in time where you choose to depart from that strategy, but I think Keir Starmer is doing the right thing in that sense. And he's already had some success on Ukraine. I remember after the showdown in the Oval Office with Zelensky, Keir Starmer was among the first to try and reset that. So probably the same. One thing I think that is very different, though, and I noticed it, I actually talk about it in the book, when President Trump came to Ireland, he wanted me to meet him at his resort, Trump International, in County Clare. And all the advice from my officials and advisors at the time, which I took, was that it would be inappropriate for me as Prime Minister of Ireland to visit him in his resort. And we eventually agreed that we'd meet at Shannon Airport. So it was interesting for me a few weeks ago to see everyone from Prime Minister Starmer to Ursula von der Leyen rock up to his resort in Scotland to chat with him, and it does show how much things have changed.
That's first term versus second term.
Yeah.
Checks and balances versus no checks and balances.
They're not there. Yeah.
Wow.
Not there.
You were the youngest Prime Minister of Ireland ever. Much was made, for good or for ill, of your sexuality and your ethnicity. In some ways, the most woke imaginable politician. In the context of your characteristics, not necessarily your politics.
Everything of being the Irish son of Thatcher to being this woke politician who let in the vaccines, the migrants, and abortion. So that's what you get.
Why did you knock it on the head? I mean, you stepped back from frontline politics. You became Taoiseach at a very young age, and therefore your decision to move on was also at a very young age as well.
Yeah, look, it wasn't a short innings, though.
That's true.
I first ran for election in 1999, which was 25 years ago, and was 13 years at cabinet and 7 years party leader. So I do feel I gave my service. By the end, I wasn't loving it anymore, and it is the kind of job that is 24/7, always on. You're never not the Taoiseach, you're never not the Prime Minister, even among friends, and was in a place personally where I just didn't love it so much anymore that I was willing to give my entire life to it. And there are political considerations as well. Politicians become unpopular much more quickly now than they did in the past. Now, I never really became unpopular, but my political capital was definitely diminished, and I wasn't able to get the hearing from the public that I did before. Initiatives landed flat. I just felt it wasn't working.
That's the alchemy of politics, isn't it? People think they can control it, and every now and then someone appears to have a little gift for knowing which knobs to twiddle, but actually there's no...
Like that, yeah. And like events just happen.
Yeah.
Like if you look, for example, the extraordinary results in the Canadian elections, Mark Carney becoming Prime Minister, that really happened because Trump became president. It wasn't because anyone in Canada did.
Nothing Mark Carney did, really.
And then even for me, like the periods where my political capital was strongest and my popularity ratings were the highest were as a consequence both of Brexit and then subsequently the pandemic. Neither of which
you were responsible
I started or wanted.
Spoiler alert.
I'd prefer if neither had happened. So that's the way it goes. So people often say, like, what are the 6 things Keir has to do to sort all this? So much of this is out of his control.
Of course it is. Do you worry at all about the rest of your life being imbued with a sense of anticlimax, given that the stakes you're playing with are never going to be as high as they were when you were Prime Minister?
Well, so far that's been really great. I can say things now and not cause controversy 3 hours later when somebody takes issue with them. So far I'm actually liking the intellectual and personal freedom of not holding public office of any sort.
I bet you are.
But this might be the honeymoon. Who knows?
For people listening to this, I think we discovered during Brexit how shameful some of the British coverage of Irish issues, and obviously particularly Northern Irish issues, and the relationship between the north of Ireland and the Republic was pretty pitiful. And we only really turn our attention when we're in moments of crisis. In the context of global politics and the stuff we've been talking about on the show today about some of the sort of increasingly worrying trends being displayed by Donald Trump's administration, similar threats from the far right in this country, what sort of state is Ireland in at the moment? Where is the country in that context?
Yeah, I think we're in a better place than most Western countries. In part because of the strength of our economy and the budget surplus and all the rest of it. We were able to afford to do a lot more to help people through the cost of living crisis. I think a lot of the time when people turn to extremes, whether it's communism or whether it's forms of fascism or far right leaders, it's because of an underlying despair at their lives, and Ireland is far from perfect, but the fact that we've been able to see real living standards rise over the past 5, 10, 15 years, which hasn't been the case in most of the Western world, I think has helped us to avoid some of the populism that we've seen in other countries, but we're by no means immune to it. I'm not naive about that.
No, but it didn't have anything like the influence at the last election that some people, I suppose, both feared and hoped, depending on their own political complexions.
Yeah,
what makes your memoir different from other political memoirs, Leo?
Well, I hope one thing, look, they're all different. I've read loads. One thing people say is that it is a good read. A jaunty read, I think, was one of the reviews. And I think sometimes a political memoir can be a history book or an encyclopedia. And I didn't seek to write that type of book.
Did you enjoy writing it?
Yeah, like not every moment of it, but yeah, I did. I like writing things down, so that came relatively easy to me, but also was a bit therapeutic. The draft you see published is not the first draft by any means, and I found in the first draft I was ascribing all sorts of motivations and feelings to other people, and by the second or third draft I kind of thought to myself, like, I've no right to do that, to say, other people were feeling this, or they were just jealous of me, or this kind of rubbish, and I took all that out, and I didn't just take it out because it would have reflected poorly on me. I took it out because, having written it down and thought about it, I actually thought, no, like, I'm projecting my emotions and feelings on other people, and I don't have a right to do that. And then when I wrote down some of the controversies as well, they actually seemed less bad and less embarrassing once I'd actually committed them to paper. It was like good old Catholic confession once you actually confess to your priest and all the rest of it. It's
but no penance.
No
penance
really,
at the moment.
No.
And of course,
penance at the time.
Yes, that's true. The index is always interesting. I've only just started reading it, but the some of the figures that you have encountered, popes and presidents, most obviously, the sense of liberation, I think, that you can now kind of you're freed from the constraints of diplomacy, but you're clearly also conscious of decency. You're not settling scores in this book, are you?
No. One or two people might feel I have, but no, generally no. Obviously my party is still in office. I know members of the government well. I wasn't going to have a go at them. Not that they would have deserved it anyway. I haven't really tried to settle scores in it. There are a few people who I might have made an exception for because they continued to criticise me even after I'd stepped down from office, which I thought was a bit uncalled for.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
But generally, no, it's not about why I was right or how I won the war or why everyone was mean to me.
Bruce has been in touch to say, please tell me that you've got Leo in for full disclosure. To which I can happily say I have. We'll be sitting down in about an hour and a half for a much longer interview, which will be about you and your life, not about politics. So I'd ask you, if I may, about. A lot of people in this country wish, and a lot of people, of course, don't wish, that the British government had shown a little bit more strength with regard to the situation in Gaza and Israel. What is it about Ireland that makes them such a staunch ally of the Palestinian people?
There's a number of reasons, but I think the main reason is we see our history in the eyes of the Palestinian people. It's an oversimplification, but it's true. We see a nation where some people even deny its existence as a real nation. That happened to us too. It's happening to the Ukrainians as well at the moment. Invasion, settlement, occupation, property taken, famine. All of those things. Cromwell's act.
Famine when there is no shortage of food.
Yes, and there was no shortage of food in Ireland at the time of the famine. It could have been stopped, but a decision was taken not to in order to clear the land of too many people. And then also even Cromwell's act of settlement. And I know Cromwell is a revered figure here for various reasons. He's not in Ireland because the act of settlement decided that the Irish Catholic natives should be restricted to one part of the country called Connacht. And there are parallels there in what's happening to the Palestinian people being corralled into reservations, essentially.
What do you look back on with the most pride?
I don't know if there's any one thing. Like, definitely what people would say to me is they appreciated my leadership during the pandemic, particularly during the early phase. And that's where the medical training came in very handy in terms of having credibility. There's one thing, and it's very, very technical, but I managed to get it over the line. And you have it here. It's auto-enrollment pensions. We've a very divided society in Ireland when it comes to pensions. If you work for a big company, the public service, a bank, you get a good pension on top of your state pension. Most people don't, and we've now started the process of enrolling people into pensions. That means in 20, 30 years' time, people will have a better retirement, and it also means they're building up a bank of savings to invest in our country. And every country has done this. Australia, Singapore, New Zealand has been great for them, and it never made the front pages. It was all about boring meetings.
Of course.
But it's something that I think in 20 or 30 years' time, if I'm still around, will be making a difference in people's lives.
You'll never have to buy another drink. You'll never have to buy another drink in Dublin.
And there's, of course, St. Bridget's Day. I managed to create an extra public holiday.
That's always going to go down
every
well.
St. Bridget's Day, I kind of subtly remind people of that.
Speaking My Mind by Leo Varadkar, who, if you didn't know already, I hope you have now understood, is not a run-of-the-mill politician by any stretch of the imagination. And he will be joining me later today for a full disclosure that you'll be able to hear shortly as well. But Speaking My Mind is out now. Leo, it's lovely to see you, and I'll see you in a couple of hours.
Thank you.
It is 11:47.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 10 minutes to 12. It was almost misinformation territory on Monday when a last-minute legal bid from one of the people due to be removed to France under the deal that Keir Starmer has signed with Emmanuel Macron wasn't removed. It's a sort of last-minute aeroplane steps claim that you'd been a victim of modern slavery. And obviously, if somebody makes that claim, then we are in a country where it has to be checked. Ideally, very, very quickly. But you will not get, I don't think, as much coverage for the fact that that scheme has now succeeded, at least in the sense of somebody getting on a plane to France, than you got on Monday when it had temporarily not succeeded. But that's the world we live in. And it's a world that is in many ways getting uglier, which is why Simon Marks is here, because a lot of the ugliness is coming from the other side of the Atlantic. I have been surprised by the response to the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel. But the more I've talked about it, the less surprised I have become. Are you surprised at all?
I'm not surprised at all, James. It's been absolutely apparent that the Trump administration is gunning for all of the late-night TV hosts. They were able successfully to pick off Stephen Colbert on CBS, his programme wrapping up now next summer. And last night, of course, it was the turn of Jimmy Kimmel, the former host of the Oscars. Last year, the host of his own programme every single night on ABC, and he has now been suspended indefinitely. Let's go back to the root of Mr. Kimmel's original sin, an excerpt from a monologue that he made on his programme only on Monday night.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Now, you can argue that those comments by Mr. Kimmel were irresponsible. You can also certainly argue that they were journalistically not entirely accurate, given that then, as now, we still do not fully understand the motivation of Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old who is accused of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But did they rise to the level of celebrating the killing of Charlie Kirk, which previously, of course, had been what the Trump administration was saying was no longer acceptable or tolerable, even though in the United States, political free speech of all kinds, even hate speech, is covered by blanket protections under the country's First Amendment. Well, the sign of shifting ground also happened earlier this week when the Attorney General Pam Bondi took to Fox News with this admonition for America's private and publicly owned employers.
Employers, you have an obligation to get rid of people. You need to look at people who are saying horrible things, and they shouldn't be working with you.
So horrible things suddenly became the new bar that everybody had to avoid articulating. And the final reason why there's no surprise about this is because as he left the White House to head to the UK for his state visit, Donald Trump stopped to take a question from John Karl, the excellent White House correspondent with ABC News. And as you will hear, he made a direct threat to the network that carried Jimmy Kimmel's program.
What do you make Pam Bondi saying she's going to go after hate speech? Is that, I mean, a lot of your allies say hate speech is free speech.
We probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. It's hate. You have a lot of hate in your heart. Maybe they'll come after ABC.
And now, of course, even while he is on British soil, the President of the United States has taken to his social media account to celebrate Mr. Kimmel's indefinite suspension as great news for America and to indicate that now he wants NBC, the last remaining of the big three networks that has not taken any action against their late-night hosts, he wants them to go after Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers, their two stars of late night. There is no way late-night comedy and late-night talk shows, a fixture of America's late-night viewing habits going back 60 years, there's no way that those programs survive this administration.
Hard for some British listeners to appreciate the sort of iconic status in US culture of those late-night chat shows. It's weird, isn't it? Because I read it slightly differently, actually. I didn't think Jimmy Kimmel was suggesting that the shooter was a member or the suspect was a member of Donald Trump's movement. I just thought he was saying that they are moving heaven and earth to portray him as anything but that. It was just sort of taking that option off the table. But I guess that both interpretations work. On the one hand, you've got the sort of comically thin skin of the most powerful man in the world. But on the other, and some of my callers have raised these points today, you've got the stench of McCarthyism now engulfing much of the country. You've got this idea of not even Reds under the beds, but comedians playing clips of Trump himself being the offence. Actually, here is your president being the offence, not even offering much by way of opinion. How is American media responding? I mean, Jimmy Kimmel, obviously, I don't imagine was particularly worried about that monologue when he delivered it. He wouldn't have thought it was going to have anything like the response that it has. But anybody thinking of doing anything that the White House might look askance at tomorrow is going to think twice before putting pen to paper or pressing record on the cameras.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Jimmy Kimmel would have been naive to think that those comments weren't going to cause a storm, but he might not necessarily have thought that they would be career-ending.
He wouldn't have thought his own employers would bend the knee in this way.
Well, it is his employers bending the knee in the face of fury on the part of some of the largest groups of local stations in the United States. And look, it's big business that ultimately is behind this decision. Nexstar, which is the largest owner of local television stations in America, many of which are affiliated with ABC and carry Mr. Kimmel's program, is trying to buy Tegna, another big group of local stations. They will become far and away a behemoth in the United States, piercing the current limits on how many local stations any single group is allowed to own. For that, they need the approval of the Federal Communications Commission. The FCC is now headed by Brendan Carr, a pro-Trump appointee, who yesterday immediately saw in Jimmy Kimmel's monologue the opportunity to attack ABC on behalf of his boss, the president. Actually said to a far-right podcaster yesterday, "We can do this the easy way or we can do it the hard way." That was his message to ABC. Next, it was encouraging the local stations to rise up and say, we're not putting Jimmy Kimmel on the air anymore. Nexstar took that move, which led Disney's top executives, including Bob Iger, to meet late in the afternoon yesterday. And even though multiple reports now suggest that they thought what Jimmy Kimmel said was completely covered by free speech protection and was defensible, they bent the knee because they simply did not want to incur the wrath of the Donald Trump administration going forward, finding themselves in the position that CBS is now in, with a bias monitor placed in the CBS newsroom. That was one of the prices CBS chose to pay. Its new owners chose to pay as a result of the merger between Paramount and another large company here in the US. So this is open season on broadcasters here. And as he's indicated in that social media message posted today from the UK, Donald Trump, on this issue of freedom of speech in the United States, is not going to yield, even as he argues that free speech is being rolled back in the UK.
There is no freedom of speech in the United States today.
There are certainly very, very heavy constraints on freedom of speech in the United States today. I mean, I am still allowed to sit behind this microphone and say what I think I need to be saying, report what I think I need to be reporting about what is taking place here. And there are certainly many other parts of the world, and I've worked in several of them, where nobody enjoys that kind of right. But there is also no doubt, James, that free speech is in unconstitutional retreat here, and that's the real issue. The Constitution is being ridden roughshod over by this administration, and so far all of those constitutional guardrails that we wondered during the first term of Donald Trump, could they withstand the Trumpian onslaught? Well, they kind of sort of did during the first term. This time round, he's simply bulldozing them.
And just by way of illustration, I know you will know this, the chap that MSNBC got rid of for a relatively innocuous comment was a former George W. Bush or George Bush staffer. And David Frum, who used to write speeches for George W. Bush, has said to CNN earlier today, this is not cancel culture. Oh, actually, we can hear it.
There's only one thing that matters. There's only one thing that matters. We had a threat of retaliation by a government official for someone not pronouncing government-commanded speech. There was an order from the state about what people must say. Jimmy Kimmel did not say that, and his corporation was threatened with consequences by a government official. This is not cancel culture, because it's not culture. It's state repression. It's an order from the government. Here's the script you must read. If you do not read it, you will be taken off the air. Jimmy Kimmel didn't read it. He was taken off the air. This cannot be, because he's a comedian, there'll be people who say maybe we shouldn't take this as seriously. But here's the comparison I would suggest. When Paul Pelosi was brutally attacked, many, unfortunately, including the son of the former President Trump, made light of it. A terrible thing, heartbreaking, a terrible attack on an 82-year-old man. Imagine if the Biden administration had given a script and said, this is what everybody must say about Paul Pelosi. And if you don't say it, we will bring pressure to bear on your parent corporation to fire you. Greg Gutfeld at Fox, you're not sad enough about Paul Pelosi. You're not saying what we command to be said about Paul Pelosi. Therefore, unless Fox fires you, we are going to bring regulatory havoc to bear on the parent corporation.
And that is a former speechwriter for the Republican president, George W. Bush. A final question. I've asked you this sporadically since January. Are you worried about your own livelihood?
I'm not worried about my own livelihood. I'm concerned that the ability of reporters here, whether they are domestic or international, truly to engage in the time-honoured ability to report in an objective fashion, to look at what's taking place here, and to say, well, hang on a second, that's very odd, that's very unusual, that's a real shift in the trajectory and direction of a country that we have all traditionally sort of, if not celebrated, certainly accepted the notion that America wanted to project itself as a shining beacon of democracy, the shining city on the hill. I mean, that is clearly, absolutely being diminished every single day here, and has been since the president returned to power in January. So, I mean, clearly the concern has to be that ultimate limits will be placed on the ability of people to speak freely here. We are not there yet, and, I think that many people will choose to continue engaging in their various professions and their crafts up until the point at which that simply becomes impossible.
Simon Marks, thank you. We will value your contributions all the more as that process continues. It reminds me of the description of bankruptcy in The Great Gatsby, actually. I think it first slowly, then quickly. It is 3 minutes after 12. Mystery Hour is next. And as often happens when the show has gone off, I got the phone-in tip prior to Mystery Hour. You've got your best chance of getting through at a moment like this than possibly all year. So if you've got a question for Mystery Hour that you've thus far failed to get in to the mix, then you know what to do. It's 12:04.
James O'Brien on LBC.
7 minutes after 12 is the time. A slightly curtailed Mystery Hour because we detained Simon Marks for a little longer than scheduled. And fake news alert. It wasn't Gatsby where they talked about bankruptcy happening first slowly, then quickly. It's The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. Gradually, then quickly. How did you go bankrupt? In two ways, gradually, then suddenly. And that is perhaps how the march towards some deeply unpleasant processes will unfold in the United States. But enough of that seriousness and gravity. It's time for some fun, it's time for some levity, it's time for some light relief. It's Thursday, it's close to 12 o'clock, and it is therefore time for Mystery Hour, your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction not ordinarily available anywhere else on your radio dial. And I have phone lines free, a situation that will not be sustained for very long, but which is definitely true now. Grab one while you can. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. If you are unfamiliar with this part of the programme, then it's pretty much exactly as I've just explained. Some people ring in, one person rings in with a question, then another person rings in with an answer. Because of the ministrations of my top team, the questions will excite or will invite interest and even occasionally hilarity. And so, of course, will the answers. But that's it by way of rules. There's not a lot else going on, to be honest with you. I don't like motoring questions. And we used to try to steer clear of repetition, but we've been doing it for so long that, frankly, that's almost impossible to enforce. You probably won't get on if you're ringing in with a question that someone asked about a week ago, or like if Keith and I can remember it from a month ago, then chances are slim, but far from completely doomed. I also need to remind you that there is a prize available for my favourite contribution of the day, and that prize is a Mystery Hour board game, soon to be a collector's edition. Soon to be a collector's item, because we're launching a new one, hopefully in time for Christmas, which will be pocket-sized and in a tin. The tin one. Mystery Hour 2.0, lovely bit of kit. I've got a prototype. And, of course, loads of new questions and a slight twist on the game, on how it works as well. So if you've already got Mystery Hour 1.0, then there's every reason why you should also get Mystery. Well, they're completely different, actually, completely different questions and a completely different gameplay. Takes a lot of pressure off the player. Anyway, more on that as the time approaches. If you want to find out more about the game, mysteryhour.co.uk. If you want to find out more about the terms and conditions of the competition, then you want to get yourself over to lbc.co.uk. And that, I think, completes the housework, all of the furniture. Let's start in Bath. Gerard is there. In Bath or in the Bath, Gerard?
Hello, James.
Hello,
I'm
Gerard.
actually in Bath.
Well, that's a relief. That's a relief.
Well,
Carry on.
Just outside, anyway. I'll be surprised if you've not had this one before. But why does my face contort when I'm concentrating? If I'm doing up a screw or something, my jaw might tense and go to one side. If I'm thinking about something really intricate, I stick my tongue out.
I'm terrible at this. I'm not blessed with the most photogenic of features at the best of times, but sometimes when I see those clips, I pop up on my own social media feed and sort of get ambushed by my own face. I do wonder what on earth I'm doing. I'm pulling all sorts of it, and the more I'm concentrating, you're right, the more contorted my face will become if I'm really trying to listen to a caller. It is very odd, isn't it? It's as if we tighten our mind by tightening our features almost.
Indeed, that might be it.
Well, it probably is, but we want someone a little bit more qualified to confirm or expand upon that. I like that, Gerard. What if it's just you?
Well, because I do work on my own, so it may only be me.
No one else does it. I said no one else knows what you're talking about. We will get an answer to that. Why do we sort of tense our features and grimace when we are concentrating? What is that? Is there an evolutionary reason for it, or whatever? 0345 60 973 is the number that you need. Sam's in Cardiff. Sam, question or answer?
Question, please. My question is about the use-by dates.
Yes.
I know we have best before dates as well, but with the use-by dates, what metric do they use to calculate them, and how regularly do they update that metric? So, for example, you get maybe 1 week on some milk, but it doesn't go off exactly the right day. They obviously have to use some sort of calculation to calculate whether, how good people's fridges are, and the point after the supply chain that the stores are in control.
So what's the science of it, really? If indeed there is a science. So how do they calculate it? I thought when you asked the question that the answer would just involve watching something go off and then setting a timer at the beginning and then sticking it on the packaging.
Yeah, but for milk, for example, some people have much more efficient fridges than others. So there must be a calculation where it must be a lot more than just watching it in a fridge at, say, 3 degrees when other people might have it at 5 degrees or 1 degree.
Would you not just use the worst? I don't know, actually. Why am I trying to answer this question? I haven't got the first idea. I was about to say something. Surely you just use the worst fridge. But that's a ludicrous intervention. I'm not being annoying. Well, I probably am, but not on purpose. I just want to be sure we've got the question exactly right. How do they calculate the use-by date, given that people will be... So what's the baseline for calculating a use-by date, given that people will be storing things in a variety of different ways? The same thing in a variety of different ways?
Yes.
Yeah, OK, I like that. Thank you, Sam. Did I say housework instead of housekeeping? Alison in Liverpool is everyone's a critic today, honestly. 13 after 12. Marty's in Belfast. Marty, question or answer?
Hi, James. Hope you're well. I have a question for you.
Carry on.
I was out walking the dog in the park this morning and I noticed some of the horse chestnuts are starting to fall off the trees.
Right.
Now, most of them are... have spikes all over the shell, but there's a few of them that are smooth. And I would like to know why some are smooth and why some are spiky.
These are conkers?
Yeah, conkers.
And I mean, they're not. They're quite hard spikes, aren't they? They're not like the chestnuts, the ones you can eat, which are really spiky, like little hedgehogs.
Yeah. I mean, if you lift one up and grab it, you'll hurt your hand. But some of the shells are smooth.
On the same tree?
Yeah.
You sure it's the same tree?
Well, there's only the one conker tree in the park.
Yeah, all right. So, I'm only asking. Just trying to pin down the parameters of the question, Marty. So we've got the same conker tree, 2 shells, one spiky, one not spiky. I don't know if I've ever come across a smooth. Have you? Yeah, people have. Okay.
Loads.
Right, I know you have. I was kind of asking Keith, actually, but then I remembered I was on the radio. It's a bit unprofessional of me. Why? Why is there a difference? That's the question.
There is indeed.
You're on? Okay, let's find out. Yeah, I like that. 0345 606. It could be male and female? No, it couldn't be male and female. Could it be male and female? No, it couldn't be. Sarah is in... Wow. You're never going to guess where Sarah is. She's in Portugal, but the name of her town... Have we had that on before? Has Sarah been on before? I don't want to start doing all the same material that I did last time she rang in response to the extraordinary nature of the name of the town that she's in. Sarah's actually in Chaos, although I doubt it's pronounced like that. We'll find out after this.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 12:17 and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Sarah is in Chaos, but it is almost certainly not pronounced like that. That's another miss. That's my question this week. Is that correctly pronounced, Sarah?
It's pronounced Schausch. Schausch.
Schausch.
Yes, Schausch with like an SH on the end. Schausch.
Schausch. Schausch. So I don't have the Portuguese. Well, it's a shame that, really, isn't it? Because it is spelt chaos for people who think I've taken leave of my semmers. Yeah. It's spelt chaos, but it is Schausch. Question or answer?
You sound like you've taken your teeth out.
Go on.
What and why is a lazy Susan called a lazy Susan? I can understand why it's lazy, but
why Susan?
Who was Susan and why was she lazy?
So for people who don't know, this is usually you come across it in a Chinese restaurant for some reason more than other restaurants, probably because you share all the dishes more than you do in other restaurants, and it's like the spinning wheel in the middle of the table.
Yes,
I've got one at home.
We've got one. Yeah, so have we, and we've got little salt and pepper and sauces and stuff on it.
And it is. I've never known it being called anything else. A lazy Susan. I'd be amazed. Have we never done this one before? Seems like the one that we would have done before, but if we did, I can't remember the answer. Why is it called a lazy Susan? Lazy because you can just spin the wheel rather than passing each individual dish. But why Susan?
Why Susan?
You're on. I like it. Give my regards to Klaus. Thank you, Sarah. Duncan is in Warrington. Duncan, question or answer?
A question, please, James.
Carry on, Duncan.
Do you know when people do a marathon in like a Spider-Man suit or a fridge on the back?
Yeah.
I never see these people train, ever. I never see anyone running, and you can't just rock up to the marathon with a fridge on your back and wing it. So I just wondered, where do these people train? How do they do it?
Well, what makes you think that they would do their training in Warrington?
Well, I'm sure someone from Warrington's run the marathon as Spider-Man.
But I don't think... I may have misunderstood your question, in which case I apologise.
It's okay.
But they probably do train. They just don't train in their Spider-Man suit. They train in their normal PE kit.
I know, but to do 26 miles in like an all-in-one suit, that you got to at least give it a go and see what you might get chafing or... But all right, a fridge on your back then.
Well, it's not a real fridge, is it? Usually.
I don't. Is it not? But where do you buy a fake fridge from?
Well, where do you buy a gorilla suit from? You might make your fake fridge out of a cardboard box. I've never seen anyone running a marathon with a fridge on their back.
Right, someone listening to this, I'm sure, must have at some point.
Tony Hawks, the brilliant comedian Tony Hawks, did a whole thing about taking a fridge round Ireland, I think, at some point. That was a real fridge, but I don't think he was running. I don't think it was a marathon. But surely, look, here's what I'd do.
Okay.
If I had to run 26 miles with a pretend fridge on my back, I'd run 30 miles without a pretend fridge on my back to train.
I know, but it's a different ball game to have. You're presuming it's a pretend fridge, so I don't think it is.
Well, I mean, we're getting quite specific now. So we've dealt with the Spider-Man suit. I think that's...
No, we didn't deal with that.
We've dealt with the Spider-Man suit. You're not going to train in a Spider-Man suit, but the training that you do in your normal PE kit is going to stand you in good stead for when you run a marathon in a Spider-Man suit.
You run 5 miles without a Spider-Man suit and run 5 miles with. They're going to be 2 different 5 miles.
Yeah, but I've told you that I would run 7 miles with my Spider-Man suit on to prepare myself for the extra burden of running 5 miles with a Spider-Man suit on.
Well, what about chafing?
Well, you can get to... Yeah, well, that I mean, you don't need to train to deal with chafing. You just use a bit of Vaseline. There is a Royal Marine who ran a marathon with a fridge on his back, but he was a Royal Marine. He's done all sorts of training in all sorts of different ways. He's chosen not to run around Warrington with a fridge on his back, which is why you never saw him.
I know, but okay. Have you ever seen anyone running for a marathon in fancy dress or training? You've got to wear the clothes at least.
All the time around ours. There's 3 gorillas last night alone.
Fair enough, then. I was in the wrong place.
3 gorillas and an ostrich on my way home, actually. No, okay, so if you're going to do a novelty fridge run, a novelty marathon, do you have to do any special training?
Yeah, do you train in the gear? That's
all right.
The gear that you do in the running.
When did you start wondering about this?
Do you know what? I don't know. I do a lot of running myself, and I remember when I was doing a run, I got overtaken by 2 guys carrying a log, and I thought, I've never seen anyone carry a log when they're training, so that must be their first time, which means I'm really slow. So
you could, that would give you cause for concern if you. I mean, it wouldn't. If it were me, then I'd probably train with a rucksack full of bricks rather than an actual fridge, and you wouldn't know, would you?
But have you ever lifted a fridge, though, from one room to another, and you traps in your fingers, and I don't know.
All right, okay. So novelty marathon runners, how do you accommodate the novelty when you're doing your training?
Yeah, and do you train in the gear? Yeah,
and do you train in the gear?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, I don't know that we're going to get an answer to this one, but I hope so. Ideally, from someone who's run a marathon with a fridge on their back. Duncan, thank you. 23 minutes after 12 is the time. Kevin is in Liskeard. Kevin, question or answer?
Answer, James.
Carry on, mate.
Conkers.
Same to you.
Smooth or spiky, sir?
Yes. What's going on?
Axiomatic rather than scientifically answered.
Right.
And I'll give you the example of holly leaves and beech hedges in order to support my supposition.
Go on.
The spikiness of a conker is its defence mechanism against browsing animals.
Yes,
so
makes sense.
When the seed is young, it is incredibly attractive to currently deer.
Mm-hmm.
In other areas, perhaps giraffe, previously dinosaur, over the period of evolution.
Well, there's a clue in the title. It's called a horse chestnut, presumably for a reason.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So above the height at which the seed or the leaf or the bud might be predated by a browsing animal, there is no requirement for the tree to develop the defensive mechanism. The same is true, and you will never unsee this once you next look at a holly leaf or a beech hedge. A beech hedge, for example, will retain its brown, crusty, dry leaves throughout the entire winter until the new growth of spring pushes out the leaf formation, because the crusty old leaves of the previous season are there to deter and protect the new, tender, delicious growth of the new season. But that only happens up to a certain height.
Oh.
Above that height, the beech tree will not retain its dead leaves from the previous season, and above a certain height, a holly tree will not produce spiky leaves. They're smooth.
And, of course, the only circumstances in which there would be a need for evolutionary change would be if giraffes were suddenly introduced to the ecosystem.
And we wouldn't see that change for perhaps another 100,000 years.
Generations. It might happen a bit quicker than that, actually.
Nah,
Some things, sometimes they do, but I like that. Qualifications, this is going to be tricky, isn't it?
Well, I'm a well-qualified arborist, run a tree surgery company.
Oh, good. Oh, right. Because when you said it was axiomatic, I thought you were just going to sort of say common sense, but no, that's brilliant if you're a well-qualified arborist. I got a question about a tree for you.
Okay.
I can't remember what it is. I was sitting on my patio the other day looking at a tree and thinking, next time a tree surgeon rings in, I must ask them about that.
That's a dreadful title, but yeah.
Sorry, an arborist.
Job description.
Next time an arborist rings in, I must ask them about that. And now I've blooming forgotten. I know what my second question is.
So you're not allowed a second question, James.
I'm James O'Brien. I invented this. It's entirely in my gift. I'm like Donald Trump. I can do what I want.
Can I come back to you with a Donald Trump axiomatic analogy as well?
Yeah, why not?
Is he orange and blonde? Is that part of his defence mechanism?
To fend off predators? Is it in case a passing lion looks at that and thinks, "Oh dear, I'd rather stay hungry"? It's possible.
I was pondering that one.
So I've got an oak tree in a pot.
Okay.
And some of the leaves have gone a bit sort of spotty and brown spots on the green leaves. What's going on there?
What time of year did it happen?
It's happening now. Is it too much water? I don't think we water it.
It wouldn't be too much water.
Could be too
summer.
little. No.
It could be too little. Could be a nutrient deficiency in the pot.
Ah, that'll be it. So what should I use?
Well, an oak tree's not really designed to grow in a pot.
No, I know. It's only a small oak tree.
Did you dig it up from an acorn that was growing in the garden somewhere?
We planted an acorn, would you believe? Years ago.
And then dug it up and put it in a pot?
Yeah. When the girls were young. It was like a little project, a botany project.
The tree will only develop so far as the nutrients that the root system have available to them to allow it to grow. So it's probably constrained by the pot.
Oh, I'd be surprised. There's not a lot of it yet, but that's a fair answer. Shall I give it a bit of tomato food or something like that?
Give it a try.
See, okay. Anyway, you get a round of applause.
Thank you.
No, thank you. And you know what's going to happen now, don't you, Kevin?
Some mad scientist is going to phone in and say it's all completely wrong.
No, the minute you hang up, I'm going to remember what the other question was that I wanted to ask an arborist.
The most common question is, how old is that tree? And the most common answer to that question is, the bit you can see is 1 year old. It's this year.
Okay, it wasn't that.
Oh, okay.
Find out you go. It's 28 minutes after 12. That's 2 weeks running where I think that the Mystery Hour ball game is going to make its way to the caller with the best laugh, and that's Kevin's currently in the lead. Ray's in Eastleigh. Ray, question or answer?
Question.
Carry on.
Why is it that we can find out exactly what people paid for a house, and over history as well, you can look online and find out what places have actually been bought for.
Yeah.
And you can't for virtually any other product. You know what they're up for sale for, but you don't actually know what they're bought for. Why is that specific to houses?
Probably the land register, isn't it? I mean, there isn't anything else that's like a house, is there?
No, not particularly.
And the price of a house is used to decide the price of a house. I don't. Is this a mystery? I mean,
it's a mystery to me. That's all.
Then it's a mystery.
You can look up and see what people paid for a house. I think, well, that's interesting, but why can't you look and see what they paid for their car?
Well, that's the bit where I think the question falls down. I think why do they publish house prices is an interesting mystery.
Yeah.
Why don't they publish car prices is not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the mystery to me.
Why do they publish house prices?
Because it makes life very easy for estate agents. They want to value something.
Well, it doesn't.
They can just go online, find what they were sold for.
Yeah, but it depends how much work you've done on it and stuff like that. But it gives you a general gist. Is it all? Yeah. I don't know it. Obviously, I don't know. But I'd be surprised if it doesn't have something to do with the land register and
I agree with you. It probably does have something to do with it. But it just surprised me that it's public information, really.
Yeah. No, it does me as well, actually. Let's find out for you. Why are house prices publicly available? 0345 6060973. It's 12:30. Amelia Cox has your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 33 minutes after 12. A lot of people getting very upset about the state of my oak tree. That's not a figure of speech. I'll take it out of the pot and plant it as soon as I get home. And I'll keep you posted. Should we do that every week? Would you like an update? No? Okay, it's just a thought. There's no need to be so mean. Alex is in Stevenage. Alex, question or answer?
His answer, James. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Welcome.
His answer about the guy running with a fridge on his back. So I'm a part of a running club in Stevenage.
Oh, yeah.
Stevenage Riders. Yep, and he actually trained for his marathon with a full working fridge on his back, and he ran the whole marathon with the fridge. He also done marathon on Crocs, and also trained throughout the whole period of training on Crocs.
The little plastic shoes?
Yeah, just a normal Crocs. Those Crocs kids wearing, adults wearing that, yep.
And he does that for charity?
He does that for charity, yes.
And he's in the same running club as you?
The same running club as me, yes.
That's pretty cool. I think you told the producer his name. I don't know whether we should say his name. It might not be fair, is it? Well, just call him Dan, your mate Dan.
Yes, that's it. That's the one.
So in a way, and you've got a round of applause, in a way, I was right, is that Duncan was being a little bit silly.
Yeah,
in thinking
I
that.
You see people, I doubt that people will put a costume to train. It will be last minute kind of thing, but like a fridge, you have to put that in your back and train with that and get used to the weight of it.
So he was both right and wrong there. So, I mean, to be fair, it's on the BBC, so I think we can say your mate is called Daniel Fairbrother, so fair play to him for doing a fantastic job. I think he stopped, did he, once halfway round to propose to his girlfriend with a fridge on his back?
That's the one. That's it. Yeah, it happened with the fridge on his back, halfway through the running. Yep.
So the question, so Duncan was right that you would have to train with a fridge on your back in order to run a marathon with a fridge on your back, but he was wrong when he thought that just because he'd never seen anyone running past his house in Warrington with a fridge on their back, then everybody who ever runs with a fridge on their back must not train with a fridge on their back. It's kind of obvious that you'd have to train. Why have you never gone down this road, Alex? Why have you never decided to do a novelty marathon?
Me? Oh, no, with a fridge on my back, no.
No.
Actually, it's too much weight to be carrying, and I got pre-existing back issues, so I can't carry a fridge
Pre-existing
on my
back issues, fair enough. See, I'm different from you. I wouldn't run a marathon without a fridge on my back. Not in a million years. Anyway, have a round of applause and give our regards to Daniel next time you see him.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Lovely stuff. 12:35 is the time. We can cross that one off. Well done, Alex. Henry's in Swindon. Henry, question or answer?
Answer.
Carry on.
So it's a follow-up to the one about the running a marathon with your fridge on your back.
Oh, yes.
You don't actually need to do that kind of training. I'm
going to fix your phone line and come back to you, all right? Sorry about that. It's not your fault. I quite like this. I wouldn't mind doing you could do a whole show on people running novelty marathons and the various different training techniques. I've got 2 phone lines free, though, and still time for questions. It's only 12:36, so if you've got a question you want to get on the board, 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. Questions that still need answers include the use-by dates. How do they decide? How do they measure, for example, milk? What fridge do they use? How do they count the days? Who's Susan in the context of a lazy Susan? And why do they publish house prices? Why are house prices publicly available? And why do we grimace when we're concentrating? Why do we do that thing? Alec is in Manchester. Alec, question or answer?
Question, please. Is it nonsense or is it a nonsense? Because that one sounds like nonsense to me. That's how I said it before.
A nonsense?
Yeah.
Well, it's both.
I don't understand. How can it be both? Surely something's nonsense or... I don't get it.
Well, kindness would be the same, wouldn't it? It can be that's kindness there, and that's a kindness there. So nonsense is like a broad... I mean, is this a proper question?
Yeah, I hear smart people say it.
Or is it a nonsense? So... Is it a nonsense? Is it? And I mean, you can say, but I don't think it matters, mate. I think you can say whatever you want, can't you? On this one, a nonsense. This is nonsense. This is nonsense, and that very specific thing over there is a nonsense. That's a nonsense. That's nonsense. I'm not feeling the distinction that you feel.
No, okay. One sounds wrong to me. Saying a nonsense sounds. It doesn't feel right. Coming off the tongue.
I know. Don't do it then.
All right, yeah. I just wanted to know why.
Just
really,
say nonsense.
But, yeah.
I don't know. I'll put it on the board if I've understood it. Nonsensical, is that? I mean, does that help? It's nonsensical, short for nonsense. So it would be nonsense, not a nonsense. It's a nonsense. All right. I think it's a nonsense is wrong, and no one should ever say it.
That's the kindness that you're doing for me.
No one should ever say it ever. All right, and anyone who does will get cancelled.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Round of applause for me. Thank you. That one is open to stewards' inquiries. Back to Henry in Swindon and the marathons. What have you got, Henry?
So I
You don't need to actually train with the actual costume or the fridge on your back. We've got other methods of making that happen. So, for example, you could wear a weighted vest.
Yes.
Or you could use what we call an altitude mask, which restricts your breathing.
Yeah.
So when you actually do the real thing, you're just substituting those. So you don't look ridiculous running in a costume or running with a fridge on your back, but you're assimilating that experience.
Qualifications?
I'm personal trainer and running coach.
Have you ever run a marathon in a comedy outfit?
I haven't. I've run ultramarathons, but I've trained people who did run in comedy outfits.
What have we got? What are the outfits?
So one person was in like one of those big bear costumes, with the big head.
Blimey.
Another was one of the superheroes. I think it was Superman. And then also somebody else who pushed his baby in a pram as he ran it.
For the whole marathon?
Yeah.
And you gave them, they came to you and you gave them sort of help with simulating the conditions so that they didn't have to push their baby every time they went out to train?
Yeah. So I actually trained them sort of in the gym on the treadmill with a weighted vest or out in the real world running with it on.
I love it. Round of applause, I think, for Henry. I like that. Nice qualifications as well. 12:39 is the time. Abby is in Felix, though. Abby, question or answer?
Oh, question, please, James.
Carry on, Abby.
Thank you. Can I just say, my daughter of 6 and I absolutely love listening to your show. And when we're in the car, we often listen to the podcast to catch up.
Thank you.
So, and thank you. Well, thank you, because we love it.
What's
and
her
on
name?
the back of that...
What's her name?
Olivia.
Hi, Olivia. Thank you for listening. I hope you do actually like it and your mum is not just boring you rigid every day, every Thursday. Right.
James, that will make her day. Thank
Good.
you.
Hi, Olivia. What have we got?
The question is actually Olivia's question,
Yes.
which is, why do we get fat rain and thin rain? So big water droplets that come on the windscreen as we're driving, and then the really fine stuff. So what's happening in the clouds to make it fat rain or thin rain?
I like that. Yeah, it's like droplet size, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what
Exactly, yeah.
What determines droplet size?
We thought it might be the amount of rain in the clouds, but fat rain tends to come down for not very long, whereas fine rain just lasts
Go
forever.
for hours. And also, it could just be one drop. We could have one drop out of a cloud. Why aren't all droplets the same size? I love that question. I've never thought about that before. I hate the fine rain, don't you? It's the worst kind of rain. There's stuff
Well, we call it the really wet rain.
Yeah,
because it gets you really wet.
Absolutely, it does. No, I hate it. Great question, Olivia. Well done, Abby, for relaying it so effectively. We shall try and find out what determines droplet size when it rains. 0345 6060973. Kirk's in Portsmouth. Kirk, question or answer?
Hi, it's a question.
Carry on.
It's a really interesting question about fingernails and thumbnails.
Okay.
So why are my thumbnails much thicker than my fingernails when I come to trim them once a month?
Is it once a month for you?
Yeah, give or take.
So I have quite a lot of fingernail-based anecdotes. You'd be quite surprised to learn. The first is this, that I bit my nails. Did you never bite your nails?
Never do.
No, I bit my nails for years. I mean, literally forever. And then I was about 45, 46, and I went to therapy for the first time. And it was wonderful. I loved it. And about 5, 6 sessions in, this is a bit delicate for people who are having their lunch. I was having a scratch, Kirk. I had a little scratch. And it hurt. I went, what the heck's going on there? And I realised that I had long fingernails for the first time in my life. So biting my nails had obviously been some sort of anxiety-based habit. And then as the therapy helped me deal with anxiety or get rid of whatever it was that was making me anxious in that way, I literally stopped biting my fingernails overnight and I've never bitten them since.
Actually, I've always been the opposite, actually. I've got a natural aversion to nail trimming generally. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe therapy would help that as well.
And it could do. And then I noted this very summer that my fingernails were growing faster than ever before.
That's old age.
Is it?
I can't back that up. No, I don't know.
Well, I can't back anything up. But why would that be? I thought it might be vitamin D because I spent quite a lot of time in the outdoors this summer, a lot more than I usually do, taking up gardening. I went on a nice holiday. Could be the vitamin D, playing a lot of tennis. As I probably spent more time in the outdoor this summer than at any other summer since 1982.
They do say that you should take more vitamin D even in the height of British summer.
Yeah, and maybe that was it. And I've done the tablets as well. I've been taking vitamin D tablets this year as well, so I don't think there is a mystery as to why my fingernails are growing much more than they used to. But there is a mystery as to why your thumbnails are tougher than your fingernails.
And I don't know if it's just me, but it's the same with my big toenail as well.
Yeah, that's the mother. That's the mothership, mate.
Yeah.
The big toenails can be right old, sort of. I don't know what the correct word would be, but they can be sort of like stones almost. Yeah, you're on. Why? Does it make sense with the thumb doing things? I don't know that it does. We'll find out. Why are thumbnails and big toenails stronger than all the other nails?
Thank you.
You're welcome. 0345 606 0973. Suri is in Hadley Wood. Suri, question or answer?
Hello, James.
Hello.
It's a question, please.
Carry on, Suri.
Right, so I'm the first-time caller. I can't believe I've missed all your shows all these years. I'm going to have to catch up somehow. But anyway, forgive me if I fumble over my words.
I'm sure you will.
Right, so when I have a shower, I have my loofah, and I put my shower gel on it, and it's really soapy and bubbly. I have my shower.
Yeah.
I don't rinse the loofah before I put it back. It's still soapy.
Right.
But yet, when I come back the next day and go to use it, it's as though somebody's washed it. There's no soap left in it at all.
And then...
So the soap has disappeared.
No, I know. I
without
understand what
rinsing
you're
it.
telling me, but then when it gets wet, it doesn't get soapy again.
No. So there's no soap residue left in there. It's all gone.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, it's a very specific question. What if it's just you?
No, because if I rinse the loofah and put it back, then I expect it not to have any soap residue in it.
Yes.
But I've left it really soapy and really bubbly, and then hung it back up in the shower. Not rinsed it. It hasn't had any more water on it. But when I come back the next day, all those soap bubbles have gone. There's no soap residue left.
So what's happened to the soap on Suri's loofah? Is the question.
Yeah, where's it gone?
Where does all the soap go overnight? On a loofah. Yeah. And just to be 100% clear, when you re-moisturise, when you re-wet it, it's still acting as if it's got no soap in it. You don't reactivate the soap when you put it wet. So you put a soapy old loofah hanging up in your shower, come back the next day, and it's as new. And then when you put it in the water, it doesn't soap up again.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, it's a mystery.
It is.
But I don't know. I mean, who would know the answer to that?
I don't know.
Well, let's find out. Sorry, you're on.
Okay,
you're absolute.
you.
Could be a shower gremlin. It is 12:46. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Why do we grimace when we concentrate? What is the base for calculating a use-by date? Who's Susan in a Lazy Susan? Why are house prices public knowledge? I can't read my own right. Nonsense, I did that one. Why are some rain droplets bigger than others? And why are our thumbnails and our big toenails thicker than all the other nails? And why does Suri's loofah, when it dries, all the soap that she's left on it disappears? Does she have a partner that uses the shower, asks Pete, when she's finished using it, who actually unwittingly rinses the loofah? I don't know. I should have asked that question. David is in Highgate. David, question or answer?
Question, please.
Carry on,
Good
David.
afternoon.
Hello.
Okay. Hello. I moved slightly further into the country from one side of the M25 to the other. Both sides have got countryside.
Oh, yes.
And I noticed that there was a different species of crow on one side of the road rather than the other side.
Really?
So, yeah, seriously, a jackdaw. I never saw them walking the dog over 15, 20 years on the south side of the M25 and moved less than 2 miles on the north side and start seeing jackdaws.
Okay.
So I look it up, and then I looked up the associated species, and they're all in the same species group and all of a similar size.
Yeah.
The question is this. One species will live 3 to 5 years, for argument's sake, and another species, very similar, in the same habitat, will live up to 15 years, I believe, give or take, whatever happens in nature. And I know it's obviously DNA, but I'd like a more detailed explanation.
What, of why some birds live longer than others?
Yes, and it's the same species, and they're all
you mean different corvus? Are they all part of the corvus, or crows? Well, we're part of the crow family, effectively.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think rooks live longer than whatever.
Do they? And there's a jackdaw. Which end of the scale is a jackdaw?
I think it's in the lower end.
So quite a short life. They're very pretty birds, jackdaws, aren't they? Very, very sort of nice-looking birds. So they're all crows. Why do some live so much longer than others?
Yeah, when they live in the same habitat and they got... there's not much to tell from a distance. They all look the same.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. I mean, I don't know if it's a massive mystery, because, I mean, they're different.
Well, I know it's DNA, but what is that trigger that makes one live longer than another?
Cool. All right, I'll try. I mean, it's on the board. I hope you've got time to get an answer. Why do some crows live longer than others? Loofah's nails, fat raindrops, house prices, lazy Susans, used by dates and facial features. In fact, you can ring in and give me the answers to any of those questions. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. I don't know if we've got room for any more questions. Why do we grimace when we concentrate? How do they calculate the use by date of milk? Why is a lazy Susan called a lazy Susan? I understand the lazy bit, but not the Susan bit. House prices. Why are they publicly available? Why are some rain droplets fat? Asks Olivia, and some not so fat. Fingernails, toenails, loofahs and jackdaws. Andy's in St Austell. Andy, question or answer?
An answer, James, on the best before dates.
Top man.
I worked in a cheese factory for a number of years.
Isn't that a song?
Sorry?
Isn't that a song?
I'm not sure. We had a lab in-house, and what they do is they'll take away a sample each time we make a batch of cheese. Some of it will be stored in like a little in the commercial fridge. Some will be stored in the main warehouse fridge.
Yeah.
And it's worked out within those dates how long the cheese lasts for and how long it's been kept for before it starts the chemical change, the balance in it changes. And that has to be agreed with the supermarkets and the shops that you supply. And so the likes of some of the big four will sort of sign off that they agree that this sort of cheese can last 63 days from the date of manufacture. And it's all done just purely by testing within in-house labs.
Good Lord.
I don't know the technical terms.
Oh, yeah, you do. In-house labs is a technical term. I like it. Yeah, I mean, in a way, it couldn't be anything else, could it, really?
Yeah, it's we did just in the main fridge just have a big sample shelf with each batch had one cheese put on there, and every now and then they'd come down, take a small slice out of it, test it again, and see how it was progressing, and that way we could check any batch of cheese as it was being made and as it went out the door.
Did you enjoy the work?
I worked in the packing and the warehouse, and yeah, it was okay. It was not the worst job I've ever had.
What's the worst job you've ever had?
Door-to-door selling of subscriptions to a book club.
Oh, blimey! Yeah, I wouldn't enjoy that
in South London.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than door-to-door, is there? Getting out, so because you're interfering in people's lives, and the last thing they want is someone knocking. I'll tell you what might catch on though.
Yep.
Door-to-door selling of cheese.
You never know.
I'd be up for that. Someone knocks on my door. It's had some lovely cheese. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, because people will always find the money for cheese, even through the recession.
Absolutely,
they will treat themselves.
Yeah, because you get the fella, and I never know whether they're scams or not, when a bloke says, I've just dropped some fish off at one of your neighbours and I've got some left, do you want to buy some fish? And I was going, no, thank you very much. I'm not going to buy fish on my own doorstep. But cheese would be a different proposition entirely. I've got a nice selection of cheeses for you, sir. Would you like to have a taste of my Stilton? Yes, I would, very much so. Special, it'll be a bit cheaper as well because you haven't got the overheads.
Definitely.
Great work, Andy. Qualifications, worked in a cheese factory.
Indeed.
Round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Could that be it? I gave away one of my great ideas yesterday. I'm not going to mention it again in case you've forgotten. I bet it pops up on Radio 4 by Christmas. Seriously, that's how things work. But there you go, door-to-door cheese sales. Has anyone thought of that before? Do you know what my best ever idea was? Fishages, which is like a sausage but made of fish. So knitting the two ideas together, fishages is a great idea. It turns out they actually exist in some sort of Southeast Asian cultures. There's no original ideas under the sun. Honestly, if I come up with what I think is a new idea for a radio show, Clive Bull's already done it, and if I come up with a new culinary masterpiece, it turns out you can already buy them in South Korea. Story of my life. Paul's in Lewisham. Paul, question or answer?
Oh, hello there. Yeah, answer, please.
Carry on, Paul.
Yeah, it's to that lazy Susan one?
Yes.
Well, you were correct in that it has been asked before, because it was ages ago, and it was me that called in.
How many ages ago? How long ago?
I think I worked it out. I'm going with 8 years.
8 years? You rang me to answer the same question on Mystery Hour?
Yeah.
Have you rung since, or have you rung me between those 8 years?
No, incredibly, no, I haven't.
So all you've ever rung me about is why is a Lazy Susan called a Lazy Susan, and your 2 contributions to the programme are now 8 years apart.
Yes, I'm afraid
That's
that is
fantastic. Give Paul a round of applause just for that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
That's sensational.
Oh, that's pretty fun.
So of all the things I do, every topic that I choose, every question that comes up on Mystery Hour, unless you've only tuned in twice and it just happens to be an extraordinary coincidence, but I'm going to work on the presumption that these are not the only 2 shows you've ever listened to. The only times you've ever thought to yourself, I'll give him a ring, is when the question about Lazy Susans has come up on Mystery Hour.
Yeah. that is really... I'll explain in a minute if you want, but yeah, that is really true.
Brilliant. Go on. What have we got? I can't remember the answer, so tell me again.
Oh, yeah. Right, the Susan involved, it's, I suppose her name would be Susan Jefferson, the youngest daughter of the American president, a decent one, Thomas Jefferson. And she was forever, I think he had about perhaps like 6 kids, and she was ever complaining that she was the last one to get past the salt or the pepper, or, you know. So he invented that spinning thingy just
for the salt,
just to keep her quiet. Well, I don't know.
Oh, and called it a Lazy Susan.
Yeah.
Qualifications?
This is the good bit. This is why I know this, because it's a crazy story. You didn't quite believe me last time, because that came up.
You've been waiting 8 years for this moment. Yeah. Go on.
I'd just been on a cruise. Yeah, this is why I know it was 8 years, because it was my parents' 50th wedding anniversary.
Okay.
So anyway, we were on this cruise thing, and I was doing all these pub quizzes, because when you're on the sea, there's not that much to do. And that question really came up. And so we all said, when the question master gave the answer, we all just said, "Oh, come on, shut up." And he got quite angry with us, really, and told us to switch our phones on.
Oh, yeah.
And search it. And people, like the people I was with, they were on, well, not everybody found Wikipedia. There was different search engines, and it was all, it was definitely.
And it was
verified.
all there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. A round of applause for Paul. Another round of applause for Paul.
Oh, and just one super quick thing.
Of course.
Because we still couldn't quite believe that afterwards. We had a bit of a drink. And I said to them, you know what I'm going to do, this is a brilliant program I listen to in London, because they're all Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got this program called Mystery Hour, and if that ever comes up, I'm going to be on speed dial like you won't believe.
Twice.
Twice now, yeah. Yeah.
I'll see you in 8 years, will I?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
So there's nothing I've done in that intervening period that made you think, I'll give him a ring on this one. Not one thing.
Oh, no, there's been loads, trust me. Yeah.
But you've never come through.
Trouble getting through, yeah. Oh, yeah. I tell you what.
Like the story. Well, a round of applause for Paul.
Oh, okay,
we're giving him one. Well, another one. Give him another one. I'm going to give you the board game as well, actually. Do you want the board game?
Oh, you know what?
What?
Absolutely.
Oh,
yeah,
thank goodness for that. I thought you were going to spoil the moment there, Paul. I
don't have it. No.
It's on its way. It's on its way to Lewisham as we speak.
Oh.
All right.
You are a gentleman.
Oh, you can say that again. It is coming up to it. Can I squeeze in David in Brighton, or is it all too late? It's too late, isn't it? Okay, never mind. That's for Olivia as well. Can we put that on next week so that Olivia gets an answer to her droplets question? Thank you. That is it from me for today. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back on Catch Up on Global Player, which of course you can find also on the LBC app, where you can stay up to date on the top stories and opinions. You can put your news categories in the order you want. You can pause live radio. You can rewind live radio. You can't fast forward live radio for obvious reasons, but you can listen to a range of podcasts. Download the official LBC app for free from your app store now. Coming up at 4 on LBC, it's Tom Swarbrick, but now it's time for Sheila Fogarty.
James O'Brien on LBC.